G'day podcasters, welcome back to Season 6 of True Blue Conversations with your host Adam Bloom, the author of Easy Target, now available at adambloom.com.au. 8 years ago, after returning from 3 tours of Afghanistan and then gaining experience and education in financial planning, Warren Loudon teamed up with fellow veteran Dave Vaughan and started Loudon & Vaughan Private Wealth, founded with the underlying belief that every person matters and every dollar counts, providing comprehensive tailored financial advice and wealth management services for you and your family. Loudon & Vaughan will guide you towards your financial goals with integrity and transparency. Whether you're planning for retirement, investing for the future, or managing your family's wealth, they've got you covered. Visit loudonandvaughan.com.au or call 02 9538 2704 to book a meeting with Warren today.
And it is a privilege to have him on. We've been talking for a little while now. It's been in the works, and he's my first Navy clearance diver. So I'm really excited to talk about his career and also his transition out of service, which most veterans and first responders do struggle with. And he had his own struggles as well, and he's still working through that. But it's a real privilege to have him on. So Ash Semmens, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to get the real stories out. I've done a few podcasts now, and a lot of them I've sort of hidden behind a bit of a cloak to protect myself. But it's time to be a bit more raw and a bit more honest. Well,
mate, we were raw and honest this morning. We did an ice bath in 0.5 degree, so mate, you can't get more raw and honest than that. So no, mate. It's mate, absolute honour to have you on. So, mate, before we get into your career, let's go back. Talk me through a young Ash. Talk me about growing up. What was life like, and what we like at school, sport, hobbies, and do you have any brothers and sisters?
Life's pretty simple back then. As a young fella, myself, mum, dad, and my younger brother, a pretty sort of salt of the earth family, very blue collar. Dad was a truck driver, mum was a nurse, and they effectively did that for until retirement. So me and my brother were quite lucky in the fact that they would always be there for us. They'd be there to support us with the little money that they earned and that they had. We lived quite a good, simple life. Spent a lot of that time cruising around the beaches of south of Adelaide, and that was kind of my upbringing. You wouldn't see me from Friday night to Sunday night when the street lights came on.
Yep.
I wouldn't be home. I'd be on the beach or cruising around on my bike, playing sport, doing all the stuff that a late 80s, early 90s kid would do.
And mate, you mentioned Adelaide. I'm family from Adelaide, so I know people give Adelaide a bit of a rough go, but it's beautiful state and part of the world. And you're right, like growing up, I remember that too, because I was in I'm 92, and mate, I remember that too. Your parents said, when the street lights come on, that's when you come home. And mate, I feel today, kids they've lost what we enjoyed as kids, the old 1-800 reverse on the phone box, back to your parents, and riding your bike, building dirt jumps, building cubby houses, all the fun stuff that you did. They don't do it today.
Yeah, that's completely right. And I look at it as the fault of parents. Like, I have a young son now that's 12. He should be out riding the streets and that sort of stuff. But I look at it and I'm very aware of him. And the world's a lot smaller now. We know all the bad things that go on in the world. Yeah. And as parents, we're quite protective of our children, as we should be. But there is that balance point of letting them go out and learn for themselves, becoming little humans that grow into big humans and go through these life experiences of, well, I'm 2 hours from home and I've got a flat tire on my bike. Guess what? There's no ringing mum and dad on your mobile. It's push your bike home. Those things, they're going by the wayside really quickly, and it's sad, but that's the reality of the day that we live in.
And good point you touch on, mate, is, there was a little bit more carefree back when we were growing up as today. Yeah, it's a very different world, and there is so much unrest in the world that I'm not a parent, I'm an uncle, and I look at that as well as I'm an uncle and my niece is my goddaughter as well. Mate, I'll do anything to protect her, and I can understand from your point of view as a father that you want that as well. You want to make sure that you're instilling in your son that, you know, the values that you were brought up by your parents. And, you know, being a parent, it's the hardest job, mate, because at the end of the day, you're just a guider. You guide them and bring them up on values that hopefully they take forward and be good decent human beings and you know, give to society and in a good way, not a bad way. But once they turn 18, it's on them, mate. Like they've got the morals of right and wrong, and it's up to them. You can only guide them to that. You know, that's all what a parent can do.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'd even expand on that and say that it's probably even before 18. I speak with and hang out with a lot of my friends who have young children and particularly young sons. I'm not going to be the center of his world for much longer. He's 12. Very soon he's going to be 15, and I'm just going to be the old dude with grey hair that he's not going to listen to. And I often say that it takes a village to raise these young men and women. My experience is with a son. Yep. So I then seek my friends, my close network that I can rely on to say, hey, can you give him this advice? Because he's probably not going to listen to it if I say it, but he will from you. So I think there's a good bit in there about, I guess, the ego. Understand that you're not going to be their like I said, their center of mass or their center of world for their entire life. They'll come back at some stage, but that might be when they're 20 or 25. So you have to relinquish a little bit of that at some point.
And it's, as you say, like I know myself, I had that full circle moment when I was 30 and when I'd written my book and I realised just how much my parents had sacrificed, and it was only when I hit 30 and I went, wow, I owe my parents everything. Like my parents gave me a chance in life that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't have had parents that cared so much. And now I'm full circle. I'm now back supporting my parents through circumstances of health, and I won't go into them, but not for me, for my father. And I now am back helping, and mate, I love spending time with my parents because I know that they're not going to be here forever. And as a kid, I ran from them from so much as I can't be seen with my parents, and that's uncool in high. Now I love spending time with my parents, and you're right, it's full circle. It goes full circle.
Well, and these people, our parents, I call them people to generalise, but they've lived a full life. They're 40 or 50 years in front of me, so they know a lot of stuff. So if I can draw out any little lessons from them, then that's just building on what I'd call wisdom at the end of the day. They've got a whole lot of life experiences that they've lived through, good, bad and indifferent, that if I can learn from those, whether it's the mistakes or the wins, then how much better do I...
well, it's only going to benefit you, isn't it?
That's right. And therefore my son and my little circle of influence. Slight segue, but it goes back to the way I grew up, is that I've recently lost two of my close friends' fathers, guys that were super influential on me, that almost, you use the word mentor, and I didn't even realise they were giving me this wisdom at the time. But then on reflection, particularly Graham, my best mate's dad, I look at him and I'm like, wow, the things that you taught me on those car rides to swimming training, in a car that the seals wouldn't work and the back seats were all wet and mouldy because the rain would get in. But those lessons really set me up for life, and you can't pay for that sort of stuff.
No, and that's, mate, really good point for any young listener out there is find a mentor, find someone who's older who is of good ilk and can teach you things, because I know it too. I've had great mentors as well that I look to and go, wow, actually you've been amazing. Like you've been a great help for me, and those light bulb moments where you go, that's what you were talking about. Oh, right. And and that's exactly right. And you mentioned, mate, so swimming, and I know, like reading your bio and hearing you on other podcasts, that so what were you like at school? Were you a good student, or?
Look, I got a pass. I definitely wasn't a scholar at all. There was certain things. Maths was one that it just made no sense to me. I had no buy-in. I couldn't relate it to life. Later on in life, when I sort of worked in the EOD world and bomb disposal, there's some very in-depth calculations that you need to know and need to be able to do quite quickly. So once I could relate that to something, I was like, oh, I can do this, and I quite enjoyed it. But back to your question, in school, like I was flat out C student if I'm lucky.
Yeah, right.
My mind was in other places. I was an athlete for one, and school was really just somewhere that I had to go.
So let's talk about that, because I'm intrigued in that, because you were an athlete, and mate, you weren't just an athlete. Like some people come on and say, yeah, I was an athlete, but mate, you were bloody close to making the Olympic team for swimming. Mate, where did that love of the water come from?
I'll thank you for the compliment, but I don't know whether bloody close really works for me, but we'll go for that for now. I'll touch on that in greater detail. But that love came very early on. Like I said, I grew up a stone's throw from the beaches in down south of Adelaide. So a beautiful place to live, very quiet, amazing beaches. In my opinion, some of the best beaches in Australia. So I joined the surf club at a very young age. My mum and dad sort of pushed me into all sorts of sports, from little athletics, where I walked off the field crying after a walking race, which I really don't like to admit that, but it is what it is. That's my history, and that's the truth. And it is laughable now to get disqualified from a walking race. Man, that's embarrassing. But I got thrown into the surf club and really never looked back from there. I fell in love, particularly with the ocean. Later on, I was good at swimming. I wouldn't say I loved the pool, but the ocean, Ironman racing, that sort of stuff was really a deep passion of mine, and still is. Like the fear that I have for the ocean is also balanced with that place is a grounding place for me. If I'm there and in the water, I feel the most myself.
It's funny you say that, because I had an army veteran on a couple of years ago, and she was learning to surf, and she said it's the only, like, and I know most veterans and first responders are the same, we want to get it right the first time, and the ocean is unforgiving, and it's not something like you just need to keep turning up, and it doesn't matter if you're having a good day or a bad day. It's a real, it has that calming effect that it's out of your control. It's
a spiritual place for me. Like I said, I'm almost at one with myself, not necessarily the environment, but with myself. And fortunately, my close circle of friends, two best mates, my brother, that's our place. We still go and have stupid body surfing competitions that we refer to as world champs, and all those sort of things. Like we're those 10-year-old kids still in the same place,
which is mad. Which is all these years later. That's
so
awesome.
Lucky, and now we get to do that with our own kids.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful experience.
And that in itself, mate. So you do your Ironman stuff, and does then the passion transition over to actually I want to be an Olympian, or where did that dream come from? Yeah,
look, growing up, Ironman racing and that sort of stuff, I really wasn't that good at swimming. I was very good at the beach events, which are the sort of B grade sort of Ironman racing stuff. I was good on boards and skis, but I just wasn't competitive as a swimmer. So I realised if I wanted to be that Ironman that I thought I could be, and do Nutrigrain series and be the next Trevor Hendy, I needed to get into the pool and do some training. And as I sort of committed more and more to that, I obviously got better and better, and the pool sort of took over, and the beach side of it sort of took a bit of a back seat, which is something really interesting, because that was my passion, but I just happened to be good in the pool. So that sort of took over, and I learnt a real lesson on reflection that I almost miss out on the part that I was passionate about. So that's quite an interesting thing that I reflect on. And that's not to take away, I love my time in the pool, and I learnt a lot of hard lessons about winning with grace, losing with grace, the value of hard work, of, again, amazing mentors. My coach that I had pretty well throughout my career is someone that I still connect with, and I'm actually going down to Adelaide to catch up with in a couple of weeks. So just such a positive experience for me, being able to travel and surround myself with particularly women. I was in, particularly later at the Institute of Sport, I was the only guy for a lot of that time with 5 other women. Quite a few of them went to the Olympics, so elite level athletes. So I learned a lot in throughout that experience, something that I'm super thankful for.
And I know that, like, as you say, you say to yourself that, you weren't close to being in the the Olympics, but mate, that era that you were going up against some of the best in Australia who would go on and be, the best in the world, I should say, that would go on and win gold medals. We're talking the likes of Ian Thorpe, Grant Hackett, just to name a few.
Yeah.
So it's not like, mate, they had an amazing career. So to be even in those, and so did you have trials and things like that?
Yeah. So I did 3 Olympic trials, 2004, 2008. Sorry, 2000, 2004, 2 Olympic trials, then joined the Navy in 2005. I sat on the blocks with these guys and raced. And do you know how intimidating it is doing a 1,500 metre race with Grant Hackett, who's the world champion, Olympic champion, world record holder, and I'm doing a tumble turn and he touches the wall and stops. So I'm 50 metres behind this dude and I'm like, Jesus, how am I going to improve that much to even be competitive with this guy? But again, a lesson of, well, you know what? Like, you still got work to do, champ. You can't rest on your laurels. The year later, I won the open 800 metres at Nationals. So because they'd had a year off for the Olympics and taken a bit of time off, they were out of the pool. And I got a Guernsey and got a win on the board. So I've got runs on the board, but for the record, I was not competitive with these blokes. They were the best of the best.
Yeah, but it's, as you say, there's lessons in everything that, and sometimes it's there's humbling lessons, and it goes, oh, okay, but as you say, wow, he's touching the wall, and I'm still this far behind him. Yeah. But it's you learn resilience. You learn, okay, well, I want to keep the drive going, and I want to touch on, so you joined the military in 2005, but before that came, did you have any family history of military, or were you the first?
Yeah, very little bit of, and I don't know a lot about my family history, to be honest, but there is spatterings of service life in there. My old man was in the Navy for a very brief amount of time. He's quite coy about that experience, and we haven't talked too deeply on it because he got himself in the shit and was discharged. So a bit of a rat bag, which flows through to me. I'm 100% a rat bag, and for the people out there that know me, that has flown throughout my life and career. So very little bit, and that definitely influenced my joining the Navy, specifically the Navy. I was a bit lost after 2004 Olympic trials. Obviously didn't get a Guernsey. That had been a sort of 6 or 7 year journey to go on, and then to realise I'm working in sort of Foodlands and supermarket jobs. So didn't finish year 12. I threw that in to concentrate on swimming. So I didn't really have a lot going for me at that time.
So it's a little bit lost in a sense.
Very much so.
And directionless.
As an 18-year-old kid looking at, well, what do I do now? I'd never given it a thought. I was going to the Olympics and that was me. Which again, on reflection, I look at and I'm like, mate, you always need to have a plan B.
Yep.
But I didn't, and the Navy was it. Defence was it. Navy probably because of my old man. Went into recruiting in Adelaide and they said, righto mate, yep, well, what do you want to do? I had no idea. I hadn't looked at anything. So I went in and looked at these glossy pamphlets and looked at the Clearance Diver. And I was like, well, that looks pretty sweet. I've spent my life in the water. I'm probably going to be pretty comfortable at that. They're shooting guns, jumping out of helicopters and blowing stuff up. Like, that looks
Every boy's dream.
Looks like
action,
a pretty...
Action man,
yeah, exactly. Like a pretty sick life. And they sold that to me. And I have a bit of a niggle with the way that it's marketed. That they marketed that to me, and I got that life. I got a very good career throughout my 18 and a half odd years in the Navy, but that's not a common story. So what they sell in the pamphlet and what a lot of people got, there's a lot of people that are unhappy with that. They didn't get the war story and stuff. So I look at myself as very lucky, and I created that luck for myself.
100%.
I put myself in those situations, and I regret none of it.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later, deep dive into that a little bit later, and your drive to get and carve out the career that you had. That was off your back. It wasn't off the Navy's back. That was off you wanting and putting yourself in then those sliding door moments, those opportunities, and we'll talk about that. But do you think another reason for you joining was 9/11 changed the world? And what do you remember of that day? And was that or not looking back now on reflection, not really a driving factor to join?
Look, it definitely had some level of influence, and I remember that day. I think it's quite strange and maybe foreign for an Australian to say that they remember that day so well, but I do. Because I was up so early for training most mornings. So I was up at, 4 a.m. And obviously US time, that's about roughly the time it had happened or slightly before. And I'd always flick the TV on while I'd have something to eat and saw it, and it was like I can remember the visions intimately. That planes flying into a building, I'm like, oh, there's another Lethal Weapon movie out or something. Like, it was so surreal to see that sort of, nothing like that had ever happened and never has happened. So I remember that, getting in the car, driving myself to swimming. I think I was old enough at that time to drive myself, and getting to training. And when you're at that level of training and at an institute of sport level, you don't see people crowded around a TV watching the news on the pool deck. Like, you're there to do a job, to get that training session done. You've got your coaches, your sports scientists, the athletes, like everyone's there. But everyone was around the TV. What is this? So yeah, and then through the session, drove home. One of my best mates, Drew at the time, he popped over and we sat there and watched the TV for the day. Like, I cut school away. So yeah, it did have an influence on me. And then fast forward to the war of Afghanistan. Like, it's funny that thing as a 17-year-old kid then impacted me nearly 10 years later in that war. So yeah, I'd be lying to say no, it didn't influence me. It definitely did. Somewhere in the back of the dark matter in my brain, but it wasn't a determining factor to say I'm joining the military because this happened.
Yeah, and I know myself. I remember I was 8, and mate, I got up. And same as you, I thought it was a movie. I was like, wow, geez, this is a good movie. And it wasn't until I registered people actually jumping out of the building. I was like, actually, no, this is real life. And then seeing the second plane hit the tower, I was like, okay. But I was 8, so I didn't realise that then, and probably you didn't either, that we would be involved in our longest war ever, because of that day. And that day changed the world. And I don't think the world has ever been the same since.
No, definitely not. And I would even say that day has still changed my life to this day.
Yeah.
Which, something that's so far away and has no real physical impact on me, actually impacted what happened in my career and now who I am as a person. Amazing how the ripple effects can travel so far.
100%. Well,
throughout the world.
It was a vacuum, mate, that just sucked everybody in to where, the global war on terror. Because a lot of veterans I've had on spoke, and especially the older veterans, never heard of the Middle East until that happened, 9/11, and the Middle East, and because nothing was happening, mate. We were in, obviously INAFED had happened, and for the army and stuff, operations and that, but the next 20 years it just went turbocharged.
We're not Indo-Pacific focused anymore. We're straight to the Middle East, and for the best part of 25 years.
That's right, and sitting in a sandpit. So you, mate, you joined. So talk me through back then the process in 2005. Obviously the internet existed, so jump online, or do you just go into the, as you said, recruiting office and sign, hey, I want to be a clearance diver? And did you know at that point how hard and the attrition rate of what clearance divers? It's a bloody hard job, mate. Like, we're talking for you, mate. You join up, and when you did join, where's basic training? Because as I say, you're the first Navy clearance diver I've had on. Where do you go, and how long is your basic training? For you, you were 18, 19 when you
18
joined?
when I joined.
18 when you joined. Were you, being that you'd come from that, the Institute of Sport, coaches yelling at you, how did you find basic training?
Yeah, and that is a great point, because I walked into joining the Navy. I got on the plane in Adelaide, flew to Melbourne Airport on the bus to HMAS Cerberus, so down Port Phillip Bay, Frankston. A fairly cold, average place, particularly
in the best of times.
Particularly in winter when I joined, so I got the both ends of the stick. HMAS Cerberus, everyone goes, or every sailor goes there, and that's their basic training. You do 3 months, or at my time of joining, I don't know whether it's any different now, 3 months where you basically learn to march, salute, what ships look like, all the sort of the very basic Navy stuff. They take you from a civilian, and that's your transition into being a defence member. So you talk about the transfer or transition out, well, that's your very directed transfer in or transition in. I found that relatively easy and quite comfortable. Again, coming from that athlete background, I'd been away a lot. I'd had to fend for myself through competitions, and they were feeding me and doing a lot for me. So it was pretty sweet for me. PTIs and instructors yelling at me. I was already fit, so I didn't have to bother about that. What was very interesting and a bit of a shock, really, is that every bit of feedback that I got, I was, all right, what do you do? Well, I'm a clearance diver. Well, you're not a fucking clearance diver. You're a recruit. You're this, you're that. You'll never make it. It's too hard. There was never any positive reinforcement, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I actually think that builds quite a resilient person. And there was a few people here and there that I got good support from. There was a chief PTI that he saw me and he recognised that I was a bit different, not better, just prepared due to my background. So he, I guess, led me a little bit and said, look, you just do what I tell you and you'll be okay. Whereas I had other guys that I joined with who never bloody swum a lap in a pool, like, mate.
And you want to be
and that went on through my career when I was then out as lead instructors at the diving school. People would come in and I'm like, we're going to have to do swimming lessons with you because you can't swim. You're a clearance diver, mate. And so I was very lucky. I was awarded sports person of the intake, recruit of the intake. So I performed well, but I really did put in the effort. That was one of those times where I said, this is really what I want to do, and I want to be the best I can be at it. And had a really good start to that. Graduated out of recruit school 3 months in, thought I was bulletproof. Went on to some very minor sort of weapons courses, seamanship courses, which all just prepare you for then flying to Sydney to HMAS Penguin, which is the home of the dive school. And that's where things really start to get challenging and really galvanise who you are and whether you're going to be successful through this process.
So for that, did you, like, when you graduated, did your family come down, see you? And was that for you, you'd found purpose again? Because you said you'd lost purpose after you missed out in 2004 for the Olympics. Was that then for you that I've actually accomplished something that I've put my mind to?
It was. So my parents, my brother and a girlfriend at the time, they flew up and we had the graduation party and those sort of things. So that was great. It was nice to see. And again, being those sort of late 80s, early 90s parents, you don't see a lot of emotion, particularly from your old man. So it was interesting to see that emotion and to see some actual pride in this person or these people, but specifically quite a stoic father who now is a big sook and will cry at the drop of a hat. But nice to get that sort of, I guess, feedback from. But I looked at it as just a step. I didn't think that I'd really achieved. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy, but I wasn't challenged in the way that I thought I would be at that stage. I was going in thinking this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done, and it just wasn't at that point.
Yeah, right.
So I was happy to get it done. There was challenging times. Again, I wasn't the most academic. So some of the more theory-based testing and stuff, I struggled. I got through them, but I still have this test anxiety to this day where you put me in front of with a test, I get quite nervous. I'm like, I'm just that stupid kid that failed maths.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of those things. But we got out of there and off to Sydney, and that's where, like I said, that's where it all starts.
And let's talk about that. So you get to HMAS Penguin, the home of the clearance divers, and what are you like? You go through your basic, and then you get to HMAS Penguin. Was that a next step up? Another, like, that was where you like, oh, okay, I'm here now, and what was your day to day look like? Yeah, mate, that's where it all happened, and I think we got in on a Friday night, late flight, so got our rooms, and it was a little bit of a calm before the storm. I expected people would, like, when we got to Cerberus, that you'd get off the bus, there'd be people yelling at you, but there was just no one there. I was like, oh, what? Like, you're almost walking on eggshells. Yeah. Is someone going to jump out of the bush? Is this ninja going to jump out and make me do push-ups or something? So that whole weekend didn't really happen.
usual sort of 18, 19-year-old, went into Sydney, got on the piss, those sort of things, and then turned up to work Monday, and that was a culture shock. When you have an able seaman walk out, which I didn't even really know what that was at the time. I'd seen him around the place, but like, "Oi, just start doing push-ups and I'll let you know when to stop." Like, what do you mean you'll let me know when to stop? When's that going to be? Don't fucking talk back to me. Start doing them. And then there was the staff stairs, which you weren't allowed to walk up. You don't learn that lesson until you do it, and you're getting sprayed by some chief from somewhere. All these little lessons that you don't know them until you do something wrong, and then you cop in a clip behind the ear, or what we call run jumps back then, which is effectively circuit training that goes on until whoever's running it decides that it doesn't, which again are very challenging and built a lot of resilience. Like, I say all these things and I don't intentionally give a negative connotation, because they really built me into the person that I needed to be to do that job. A lot of that stuff has been taken away now, and I think at the detriment of some of the sailors. Whether good, bad or indifferent, I think it did need to be managed better and employed better in those situations, but I don't think I've been through something as consistently hard as my early years at that dive school. You look at selections, so 10-day clearance, back then it was the Clearance Divers Acceptance Test, or CDAT. That is, well, it in my opinion, that is one of the great selections of the military. You've got SAS, and I don't want to compare them because they're different beasts, and I'm not going to say one's harder or easier. They just are what they are, and they're assessing people for different roles. But that selection was really challenging. But again, I had the benefit of growing up in the water. I loved that place. So if you get me doing push-ups or running up hills, I hate it. I still hate it. I hate running. I still do push-ups because we did 50 every day, and that was our respect to the branch and to those that we've lost and whatever else. So I probably can't do 50, but I still do it at training and that sort of stuff. Running I avoid, and I recently just tore my calf, which tells me that I shouldn't run. But then, going back to that selection, 10 days of not much food, not much sleep, and just some medieval exercises and events that they'd put you through: finning, kayaking, pack marching, all sorts of, and then the cognitive overload type testing. So, as I alluded to, I had the benefit of being in that marine environment. So they'd say, get in the water, and I was like, sweet, this is my happy place. Whereas I had other people and colleagues that I actually, still some of my best mates that I worked throughout for that 20 years, and they're still garbage swimmers. I'm like, mate, what is wrong with you? Like, surely you would have got better. Very good divers, and we don't necessarily streamline within the career, but some people do. Like, my background is largely EOD, and I specifically drove myself. Some of the guys go into those special forces roles out at Tag East, and they're very good shooters, and they're very good this, and they're very good that. But that's where you find the guys that can't really swim and stuff. You're like, oh, yeah, you specialise out there for a reason. And again, I don't take away, they fulfil a very, very important role in domestic counter-terrorism.
Of course.
And it's kind of a light-hearted dig at them as well. And they'll know who they are.
So for you, mate, and because you're the first clearance diver I've had on, can you explain to the non-military listener about finning? What is finning? Sure.
So finning is effectively kicking your legs on your back, not using your arms. You've got fins on. It's something that we use. I mean, that's how we transit around. Imagine getting in the water in a minefield. A boat can't go in there because it often initiate mines. They're looking for specific signatures, whether it's vibration, sound, all sorts of things that can initiate. So you will then fin on your back into this minefield to the appropriate place. Then you'll leave surface or start the dive to go and prosecute this mine, or do whatever is required for that situation. So it's something that, it's basically just a method of transport. And we do it. It's part of the PT testing, a 500 metre fin in fins and overalls. It's intertwined within, and every basic scuba diver but clearance diver within the Navy, everyone knows it intimately because you spend so much time doing it.
And so how many started selection with you and how many finished?
Yeah, good question. I guess selection specifically, there was, I think, I've got a picture of it, I think it's about 21. We finished the end of that selection with 9, and then 5 of us started the clearance diver course. 9 of us started the Clearance Diver course and we finished with 5.
Wow.
But then you roll back to at Cerberus, there was 25 of us. So as you go through each gateway, you often lose a few, and the biggest gateway is selection. For many reasons. Probably the biggest reason is self-withdrawal. They'll just remove themselves from the course. Often it'll be people that are changing over from other roles in the military because they know that they've got a job to go back to. For me, I had nothing to go back to. And funnily enough, for the guys that I finished the course with, the 5 of us, only one of them was a changeover. The other 4 of us had nothing to go to. So I think that's probably more of a comment on him to get through it than it is of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I guess a bit of a shout out to him. He'll know who he is.
but that in its own right, mate. Like when you've burned all your bridges, or you don't have bridges to go back. And I always love the analogy that Denzel Washington uses, where he says, he always used to hate the saying of make sure you got something to fall back on, and he hates it because you can't see what's behind you. You can only see what's in front of you. So, and you put your, you put your feet forward every single day and completed that selection because what else did you have?
Yeah.
Like you had nothing.
Well, I look at it as having a safety net.
Correct.
And everything I do, I try and remove that safety net. Now with businesses and those sort of things through my career, I would put myself in because it allowed me to be the true me. And I know this now on a lot of reflection and growing and maturing. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought that I'd just throw myself in and see what happened. I just didn't give myself the option, and it forced me to win effectively or to achieve.
Well, your back's against the wall, mate.
Yeah, that's right. And I often say, like, I'm not necessarily a fighter, or I do a lot of jiu-jitsu and comps and that sort of stuff. And I can take a lot until I get to a point where I'm like, okay, that's my point, and bang, I can do what I want. I use the fighting analogy because I've been bashed a million times until I get to the point where I'm like, oh, this is going to go really bad for me. Now I've got to protect myself. So that's the analogy that I'll use.
But I like it because, you do look at it that every person will change once they endure pain, or it's how long you can endure that pain for before you go, actually, I don't want to do this anymore.
That's
Fuck
right.
this. I'm gonna change and make a change in my life. But pain, and mate, I know through my own pain has come my greatest achievements. Like I wrote a book through pain and overcoming adversity. Like that. That's what it is. You and exactly what you're saying is, okay, yeah, I don't like this pain anymore, or I can do something about it. And exactly, great point. And so, mate, not long after you pass and do you get anything for passing selection? Like, do you get it? Like, does it say, hey, I'll get a beret, or what is it for Navy clearance?
Look, we do get a blue beret, but anyone in the Navy can wear that. We sort of present it as, because very few do. It's one of those weird sort of grey areas where it's kind of presented to us as a beret, but it's, again, I don't want to take it away from proper beret qualified Commando SAS guys. It's not the same thing. We get the thing that we kind of hold with pride is our Clearance Diver badge, our rate badge. The diving helmet with the C under it, that's the thing that we're proud of and that we wear with pride. We earned that. We endured the selections, the 9-month course of being cold and wet and sandy and working 20 hours a day for 6 weeks.
Did you get chafing, mate, because of the sand?
Yeah, and look, you learn to deal with those sort of things, but there's always a blister or a chafe or a something and a burnt lips that are blistering, all that sort of shit that just comes with working in a marine environment. But you get very good at managing that. And if you don't, you drop off. You just learn, adapt and overcome.
And I want to ask you that because, mate, I love the water, but I'm scared of sharks. For you, you're going in wearing a black suit that sharks might come and go, oh, I might actually have a bit of a chomp. And we'll get to a scenario shortly. But did that fear ever stop? Like, did you ever think, what am I actually doing here? Or you just always went back to, I love being, this is me? Like, and talk me through that.
Look, the answer is yes, and I know that we're going to dive deeper in, so I won't talk too much on that just yet. But what got me going and continually going back is that I was having a fucking great time. I loved it. Like, you look at that 9-month clearance diving course, you're diving every day at whatever depth, whatever sort of element that you're doing. Could be 60 metres on air on a helmet, or it could be 9 metres on Pure O2 doing a tactical swim for 2 kilometres on a timed mission that you have to make it by the time, or guess what, go re-gas, re-proto, i.e. get your dive set ready, and you're doing it again. And that would go on until the very wee hours of the day, i.e. 3, 4 a.m. And then you're back on deck at 7 a.m. going, guess what? Get them again.
Yeah,
like,
that's mad.
And there's no pepper on that. That is 100% what we did. And again, like I said, that built me into the operator that I became, and I was able to do whatever was asked of me in whatever scenario, because I knew that I could fall back on that stuff. And again, whether it's right or wrong that stuff has stopped, I think that we will see that in the coming years. I mean, depending on who you listen to and what podcast you listen to, they say the drums of war are beating. We need people to be resilient and be ready. I don't agree nor disagree with that, but I do know that we need people ready. Australia needs a strong defence force, and they need strong people within it, and they need strong leadership to lead it.
And mate, we could open a can of worms there, but I think we'll steer clear of that.
Yeah.
But, it's more that could be a second podcast.
It very easily could.
But for you, mate, as you mentioned, that you have, so you say that there's specialist branches. You went EOD, that side of things. You can go the special force route. Did you always know that you wanted to go the EOD side of things?
Yeah, look, I gave the Tag East bit a go. I again I achieved appropriate pass marks for selections and those sort of things. Went on to CQB, and at the time, I'd come straight off the back of HMAS Gascoyne doing a lot of Op Resolute Border Patrol stuff up in Northern Australia. Did sort of nearly 2 years worth of that. So my weapon skills just weren't like, I was fine. I was competent with weapon drills and changeover drills and that sort of stuff. I just couldn't shoot to an appropriate standard. So I withdrew myself from that course. So that was the end of my, I guess, Special Forces route. I sometimes reflect on that and regret it, but at the same time, I wouldn't have had the amazing career that I did if I'd continued down that route. And again, that's not a comment on people that do it. They have amazing careers and they do some amazing things. Just didn't work out for me and wasn't for me.
Yeah. But you got to know your niche, mate, and you fell into your
That's
niche.
right. And I still am very passionate about EOD, IED, particularly IED, because that's kind of my background. It's just such a you against a complex task. There's a million other things going on in those sort of theatres of war, but it's just you and someone that's put this thing in the ground or on the road or in a room, and you've got to overcome whatever they have. So it's a really interesting space to be in, and something that I find really
it's nuts, mate.
appealing.
That's what I say, mate. That is just. But then people say to me, being a fiery, running into a burning building is each. Mate,
everyone has their thing.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. Exactly. And so you talked about Op Resolute, and that was so you finish, you graduate, you're now a Navy clearance diver.
Yeah.
Mate, Op Resolute, what was that? Talk me through that first. Is that a deployment or is it more a posting?
So no, it's a deployment. So the posting was to the mighty warship HMAS Gascoyne, which is a relatively small, I say mighty warship in jest, or not in jest, but tongue in cheek. It's quite a small mine hunter built out of glass reinforced plastic to transit through minefields. It has a complement of clearance divers to clear minefields. So not necessarily what it's designed for up on Op Resolute, which was effectively, at the time, we had a lot of illegal immigrants and illegal fishing going on. So sort of a two-tiered approach for both of them, and we did a lot of both of them. My first year, so I joined the ship, flew up to Darwin, got on the ship the next day, transited to Singapore for my first overseas port, which I don't remember, as you'd expect from a 19-year-old in an overseas port, for obvious reasons, I think. We don't need to go into that any further. And then on the way back, got retasked for Op Resolute, and that looked like the next 9 months of a 12-month period, floating around the top of Australia, in and out of Cairns, Darwin, Weipa, Gove, all those sort of places. But was really quite formative in my Navy career. As a clearance diver, rarely we go to sea, and when we do, it's often for a very directed task, and we'll talk about some of them later. But for me, I was part of the ship's company. I was posted to the ship, so I was expected to do all the things that everyone else does: do the dishes, do bridge watches, drive the ship, as well as my clearance diving roles. So it gave me a really good understanding very early on what's expected of what I'd call the grey Navy, the real Navy, the people that do it on boats, and probably a passion for that too. I chased that again later on in my career. And I've got some of my best friends are people that are people from the grey Navy, not in the clearance diving cohort. So yeah, I was very lucky to get that done and to have a good understanding of the Navy from such an early point in my career.
And I look at that, and mate, it's just wild that a 19-year-old kid is in charge of, driving the boat.
Yeah.
Like a multi-million-dollar bloody boat, a warship.
Yeah.
And you're driving. Yeah, you're on watch, mate. Yeah, you drive. You have the ship.
And
far out, mate.
And realistically, that is what it is. I mean, you've got an officer of the watch up there who's qualified, and they're officially in charge. But I'm the one on this little steering, and it's effectively like a car. It's literally a steering wheel with all the bells and whistles. And if I wanted to turn that thing into wherever I wanted to take it, no one could stop that.
Yeah, right.
Engineers and stuff could take over the engine and steer from other places. But yeah, it is quite a bit of responsibility, and particularly when you're coming alongside wharves or transiting through harbours and that sort of thing. It can be quite dangerous. Probably not the most dangerous thing I've done, but and quite benign if I look back on it. But yeah, as a 19-year-old kid, you're just driving a warship.
100%. Oh, that's just, and mate, I have to get the monkey off the back. I have to ask this question, and I know because you're in the Navy, and I want to ask this, mate. Is it what we saw on Sea Patrol?
Yeah.
Is that what the Navy's all about, mate? Or
look, mate. Obviously, the movie industry can dramatise. Some of the stuff is pretty on point, but I mean, let's say 98% of it is bullshit. Not ever did I see someone in a boat wearing a bikini or those sort of things. And, it made for a good show and probably did a little bit for recruiting.
Yeah.
But
mate, I love that show.
Yeah,
it's great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Anyone that's actually been in the Navy, they're like, just roll their eyes at it. Yeah.
No, I thought I'd get that in early, mate.
Yeah, mate,
But that I looked at that and went, oh, actually, that looks cool. And I was like, you know what, I might join the Navy. And then I was like, actually, no, I won't join the Navy.
Yeah, it's the same as those, I guess a Hurt Locker movie when you look at EOD. Like, there's some stuff in there that is very close to the truth, and then there's some really good dramatisations of. I think he picks up 5 or 6 projectiles, probably 155 projectiles, which you're flat out picking up one of them.
Yeah, right.
So all that sort of stuff.
Of course. Which
Hollywood makes it look good.
Of course, mate. Always a good sell. So. Mate, you come back, and that was a 9-month Op Resolute.
Yeah, so we're in and out of the area for 9 months. It was a 2-year posting, so we went back up again the next year, and the crew was really fatigued by the end of that. It was a lot of time away from families. I had, again, a girlfriend at the time, which that really put some pressure on that relationship, and that didn't end. Didn't end well for a number of reasons, but it highlights that these jobs. Not just me as a clearance diver, but the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, the military in general, really, I don't think it gets acknowledged enough how much of an issue and a stress that puts on relationships. The inside joke is that if you make it to sergeant and you haven't been divorced, then you've probably done nothing. I made it to sergeant. I made it to chief and didn't get divorced, but it got me sooner or later.
Yeah.
It does take a huge toll.
And it is like, mate, whether you liked it or not, you signed your family up to this life as well.
Yeah.
And the stresses of your mum and dad and your brother, sorry.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
Like that in itself, mate, looking back now, you signed them up to, and when you're overseas on operations, they're waiting, like they're living their lives going, are we going to receive a phone call that something's happened to Ash or, and any veteran, so it's a good point you touch on that it's not just the wives and the girlfriends, it's the families in general. You sign them up to this life.
Yeah. And children, like we'll get into it, miss my son's birth. You make a good point about the parents. Like I saw the toll that my career took on my mother specifically, particularly my Afghanistan deployment and And I didn't tell anyone what had happened while I was there. I didn't disclose that till when I got back because I knew that would take a toll on a lot of people. So yeah, it's again the ripple effects, right?
100%.
It's a dangerous job, and everyone comes on that journey with you.
And you, like you said, mate, when you joined up, and this is where it's a different way of thinking as well, that you sign on the dotted line you sign a blank check that could lead to you giving your life, and you're okay with that, and and that's same as any first responder, same as us. Like if it, it's tragic, but if we perish, that's just it's part of the job. It's part of the job.
And I, again, as a relatively naive 18, 19-year-old when I joined, I knew that I was signing my life away in terms of if I was to pass away, it is what it is. But I wasn't willingly... I didn't have a death wish. I love life. I was scared to death of death. I've now sort of reconciled with that. And
we're going to get into that a little bit later.
So, all right, we'll talk about that later. Yeah. But I was very aware when I signed that dotted line that I am signing this and I may have to give the ultimate sacrifice. So that wasn't lost on me at the time. It was quite a pivotal point to say, wow, I'm actually doing something.
As a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's very forward thinking back then because most 19, 20, or young adults, mate, we all think we're bulletproof.
Yeah.
So, and we think death's not going to happen to us. And, whatever, mate. Yeah, sign the dotted line. Yeah, no, not a problem.
Yeah.
It's only as you get a little bit older, you go, ooh, actually. So for you to have that thought and you're 19, it's very forward thinking, mate, of shit, yeah. And still that dilemma, too, but I've got nothing else.
Yeah, the gravity of it, I completely understood that. And I'm not going to say that I am a super wise person at the time or whatever. It was just something that has sat with me that I felt like I was signing my life away. So it was a really interesting experience.
To a point you did.
Mate, I signed a lot of stuff away that day.
You did, mate.
Yeah.
So you come back from that really, I would say from what you're saying, a high but also burnt out as well? Or
very much. Again, it was my first experience of being away for such a long time, pressures on relationships. I didn't have a house because I'd come straight from course to being away. So a lot of things. Look, still super excited. Every day was new to me. And coming back from that 2 years, it was new to then go to the clearance diving team. That was my next posting. So, and that's the pinnacle for a clearance diver is you want to go and work at the clearance diving team. Team 1 or Team 4 being Sydney or Perth. So I was still floating on the clouds going, cool, I'm finally going to where I want to be. My mates have been there for 2 years since course and I've been floating around in the ocean, which again was amazing and I wouldn't change, and gave me great perspective that I was more thankful to be there. That's the next step of the journey.
So you moved to Team 1.
Team 1
in Sydney.
Yep.
And we talked about sharks a little bit earlier, and one of your clearance divers, as most military or non-military people now know, Paul de Gelder, was finning, from what I've been told, was finning in the harbour and was attacked by a shark. You weren't involved on that, but you were involved in the next part of, and from what I can grasp is, mate, he shouldn't be alive. Let's talk about your part of what had happened that day. Yeah,
and I'll also caveat on that, this is a very interesting space for me to talk because it's very much Paul's story, but there's a lot of other people that are involved in it, being the guys that saved his life, probably most importantly, secondly only to Paul. And then there's my story. So I almost feel a little bit of it's hard to tell because I'm not intimately involved, although as the story goes on, you'll understand. But yeah, it's a challenging one to feel like I don't want to take it away from him or to like I said, to the guys, because the guys that saved him, they're fucking heroes.
Well, he shouldn't be here.
He should not be here. So an amazing story for him and for those guys. But my story, I was in the gym that morning, and I've told this a couple of times, but there's a couple of points I want to drill down on, so I'll be quite quick through that.
Yeah, of course, mate, yeah.
Heard that there was attack on the radio while I was in the gym. Knew what we were doing. I was the next shift to go over sort of for the morning, so about 10 o'clock I was due to go over and take over from those guys. Knew there was attack, knew what the boys were doing, knew the location, so you join the dots. You're like, okay, one of the boys have been attacked. Made my way back to work. It was relatively quiet. I think we'd actually heard on the radio before anyone at work really knew what was going on, or at least had a chance to build a plan around what the reaction was going to be. So saw one of the other guys. He knew what was going on too. We're like, okay, again, join the dots. They're going to be coming back at some point, so let's go and meet the boys at the boat ramp and just see what happens. We didn't know whether Paul was coming back in the boat. We didn't know. Yeah, we just had no idea. So as it went, we went down to the boat ramp, and the guys, so they unloaded Paul into an ambulance. He was in surgery. They'd made their way back. As they pulled up to the boat ramp, and they're in a rubber boat, little Zodiac, and they drove it straight at the boat ramp. The engine clunked up the concrete. That's at the point where you're like, that's not normal. That's not where you park the boat. And these guys didn't give a fuck. They were like shock. That's what it was. It was shock. One of the guys that was in the boat, he's black. When he came to the boat, he was white. Like you could see the impact that this event had on these guys. It was very, very clear. And then when they get out and you see the state of their clothes and with the blood and literally the pieces, which is quite graphic, and I apologise for.
No.
That's the reality.
Yeah, of course.
And we looked at these guys and said, go and do what you need. Go and get clean. Go and whatever, debrief. What should have happened and what did happen are different things. We stayed there and then cleaned the boat, and I don't have a very good memory. Like it's one of those sort of trauma responses that it blocks it out, but I do have one memory of picking up this strand of what I would say is muscle and just sort of flicking it and watching it end over end into the water. And I laugh about it. HMAS Waterhand and a lot of the Navy bases there, like there's a lot of brim around there. So this brim just swims up and eats it. And I just have this funny memory of that yeah, that's the one that sticks with me.
Yeah.
I don't remember what this boat actually looks like. I think I've made pictures up in my head over time or whatever, but that's the one true memory that I have holy fuck, like that little fish has just eaten a bit of my mate. Yeah.
And a big fish.
And a big fish has just eaten a whole lot more of him.
And his hand. And
his hand and most of his hamstring. And then, again, one that I haven't really talked about because it's never sat well with me, still doesn't sit well with me for a number of reasons, is that a day or so after, I mean, it obviously hit the news quite quickly. News channels want to do stories. And that came, I was then directed to then get into the water and reenact the shark attack for a news story. And that's a bit of a challenging one for me to talk about because from seeing that boat, like my life changed. My passion for the water, everything fucking changed that day. So I was...
Understandably.
Like, I'm now in the water pretending to be attacked by a shark after one of my mates has just been attacked by a shark. I'm shitting myself. I feel like there's a level of stolen valor or something in there because I'm pretending to be someone that this has just happened to. Like there's so many complex thoughts and ideas about it.
And it could have happened to you.
Like, wouldn't that be ironic?
Yeah.
That you're in there pretending to be attacked by a shark and you get whacked.
And you get whacked,
And what's the chances? Like, they're the sort of things, they're the stories that happen.
100%.
And for years...
Because you're tempting fate.
That's right. And even only in the last month or so, I've still done some deep psychotherapy on getting over those things. There's, like, probably 12 months or so after that, still in the same element... at the diving team, which was MCM, the operation that Paul was doing when he was attacked was an MCM operation. We were then in Jervis Bay about 12 months later doing exactly.
Yeah, right.
Doing our workup training and getting assessed to say that we were operationally ready to deploy. And I was in the boat dressed in a dive set, A5800, which is quite a technical rebreather set, going for a relatively deep dive to Prosecutor Mine, obviously a training mine. Middle of the night, 1, 2 o'clock, like just the holes in the cheese were lining up. And I had not sought any therapy or help after that. So I was really in a bad place and continued that for the next 15 or 20 years. But was in the boat ready to sort of roll off the back and start this dive, and I literally froze. And it's another hard one to talk about because I'm ashamed of that action, that I couldn't get in the water. To the point where one of the other guys, I got undressed, he had to get dressed and do the job for me. And that whole dive, while he was down there, let's say 30, 40 minutes, I sat there and I was like, if he dies, if something happens to him, that's going to be on me for the rest of my life. Like, that's my fault because I'm too much of a pussy to get in and do that job. And that, again, the lesson that I learned from that is that I will never not do something that's expected of me. If someone can't do it, I will also do it for them. But I'm never putting myself in that situation ever again, because that was fucking hard.
And how old are you at this point? When that happened in 2009, you're what, 23, 24?
Yeah, give or take,
Yeah, give or take. Yep. Mate, I think now, and you're in your 40s now, and you know, and I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
I'd even struggle to do that now in my 30s. And so that's a lot of responsibility. And mate, to not be able to process that, that's hard to even for me to think of it now is where I'm at. And so, mate, I think you're very harsh on yourself to, but it's at the time, mate, you it's a natural reaction.
Yeah.
Like, it's your body going, and we've all had those moments where we've all frozen going, should I be doing this?
Yeah, like it's the natural fight, flight, or freeze.
100%.
And I've never experienced a freeze other than that time.
Yep.
And
you faced other dangers going when we'll talk about that.
And I will never face that again. I will fight. And like we talked about earlier, it takes me a lot to be pushed to fight.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the reasons that I've experienced that. And I watched this guy and I was like, his life is now in my hands and I 100%. Can't control that.
And after that, after Paul had been whacked, and I hate saying that,
yeah, it's fine.
But he was whacked by a shark. Yeah. Did the Navy step in and change SOPs around that attack, or because Sydney Harbour, of course, there's a lot of bull sharks in Sydney Harbour, and every time I see people jumping when they're drunk, I'm like, hey, you're kind of tempting fate here.
Oh,
like,
mate.
And did the Navy get you all together and go, and as a team, did you all come together and go, oh shit, this is a bit like a lot of fear getting back in the water?
Yeah, look, I talk about my fear, and I know that I've spoken with plenty of guys over the years since, and that really drove home, like, diving in itself is inherently dangerous. The diving set that you have on your back is a life support system, and that may fail at any given time for a number of different reasons, whether that's error in the equipment or operator error. So it really drove home that every time you get in the water, then that could well be. And even very recently, we've had accidents where people have very nearly been killed just through operator error or equipment error.
Yeah, wow.
But going back to the shark thing, it's very real. Like, for me, I've been very open about it. It is what it is. Hopefully, so I can reduce that stigma for the others. Say, hey, you know what? It scares the shit out of me too. How do we work with this? What can we do? Or do we just suck it up and get on with it? Because you know what? Doesn't change anything. Sharks are sharks.
Yeah.
The ocean is the ocean.
Oh, it's there. We're stepping into their backyard.
100%.
They own that backyard.
Yeah.
We're and it's funny that more people are fearful of getting eaten by a shark than driving a car.
Yeah, that's right.
And driving a car is more of a risk every day that we do, but it's just we just put it out of our mind and go, oh yeah, we just get in the car and
away you go.
And complacency comes in with driving a car.
Well, that's the fear of the unknown, right?
Exactly.
Like, we know what driving a car is. We do it every day.
Exactly.
We just, it's like I said, it's their world. It's we don't really belong there nor know anything about it. We just hang out in there for fun a lot of times, or for me for work.
And as you say, mate, good segue to touch on, the 17-year-old that was taken, by a shark up here the other day, like on Bribie Island, just 100 metres off the beach, just doing her thing. And, so we do enter into their backyard.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
you got to be fearful, but it's that fight, flight or freeze.
Yeah.
And so that happens. And then Did that take? Did you get a little bit of help with that to try and?
I guess, and I'll go back and answer your previous question about SOPs. So yes, some things came in and changed. There was, I guess, restrictions around sunset and sunrise, that they were the most likely times during the day to get attacked. Dirty water, places where people are fishing. They put in what was called, I think, a shark presence planning tool or something, which as a community we effectively looked at as bullshit. Like, they just didn't take into account enough factors and the factor that it's unpredictable. So the military and a lot of government services are really good at knee-jerk reactions, saying, we're going to put this in and that's going to solve everything. Well, you know what? You can't predict a shark attacking you.
No.
Can you even put things in place to limit it? I still don't think so. And you know what? I dived in the middle of the day and saw sharks. I saw them at midnight. Like, it doesn't change. Now, back to your question about help. No. Flat out no. I flew under the radar with everything throughout my career because I was really fearful of losing my career. If I was to put my hand up and say that I was struggling with something, I knew that I would get benched for a period of time, maybe forever. And ultimately that's what happened to me later in my career, but
compartmentalised, just keep cracking on.
At the end of my career I needed it. At that time I needed it. I just didn't take it. And my advice to anyone out there too, anyone, it doesn't matter whether you're in the military or what you do, when it happens, get the help.
100%.
Like, it might take you a month worth of help, whereas I left and I'm 2.5 years down the track and I'm still seeing psychologists and all that sort of stuff.
Mate, I do as well.
Yeah.
Like, every 3 to 6 months I go and I call it I get the wheels rotated, so the wheel rotation and the oil change, and crack on and keep but it's. Yeah, I wish I had have, in hindsight, looking back now and where I am 10 years on from where I wanted to end my life. Yeah. I wish I had have got that help. Or now I've got a real interest in mental health and I've started to train in it, and I'm now a mental health first aider, and all these things that I've done since that I wish I had have known back then, because I probably wouldn't have got to the crisis point if I had have sought help earlier. And you're 100% right, mate, I love this platform, because if anyone out there is struggling, you're not alone. Yeah. Reach out and ask for help. Yeah. And, put your hand up and break that stigma down. And it takes courage to speak up. Yeah. But courage, speaking up saved my life.
And when I did, it was fucking hard. I was worried that reputations are built over many, many years, and I was so worried that by saying that, I would just lose it and be done. And that's not the truth.
Do you look at it now and just say to yourself, that was bullshit?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And now I speak with people regularly and they say, look, I'm happy to go and do it because you were. And I don't want to be that dude. But if that helps 1 people or 100 people, then that's awesome. Exactly.
That's all it takes, man.
Yeah. And I guess while we're on the subject, I put my hand up, went and saw a psychologist. I won't be too harsh on them. They didn't get me. They didn't get my history. Yeah. So I cut them away and I was like, shit, I've wasted my time. Let's go and get another one. Yeah, same thing. So I actually went through 2 to get to my 3rd, and now with Lou, life changing. I was able to process all these things that we're probably going to get to, and it took 12, 18 months of hard work, but it wouldn't have happened with these first 2. You need to shop around and find something that suits you and that resonates with you and that you're comfortable enough to sit there and, I'm not ashamed to say I sat there and I cry in front of a grown woman talking about these things. And involuntary tears is a really interesting thing that I'm like, why is this happening to me? Because these things have been in my mind and my brain and my psyche for 20 years, have just been suppressed and compartmentalized, like you say. And now to go through and to reprogram and reprocess and revisit all these things was a real challenge.
And I love what you said, mate, because I talk about it whenever I give a talk or anything, is finding the right psychologist, psychiatrist, counsellor is like speed dating. Yeah. You'll sit there and go, well, you look, oh, no, you're not for me. Oh, no, you're not for me. And then finally you get one and go, actually, we might have a coffee date.
That's a great analogy.
And that's how, and it took me 3 as well. It took me 3 years to find the right, and in the end, I almost gave up again, and I was like, oh, forget it. It's not going to happen. But then I found my dude, and I've just recently moved, so I've got to find a new one.
Yeah.
But he was, mate, just, I found him and went, you're my dude.
Yeah.
Like, you're my dude, man. And that's what I say to anyone out there, and I'm glad you brought that up, that is, if you're not happy, find someone that works for you and do shop around and find that person, because once you find them, they're a game changer.
They are.
And then you start the process to heal, and that's what it's all about.
And if we can, that advice, if that avoids someone from going to one psychologist and walking out the door devastated, they thought they were going somewhere to get help, and it just didn't work, and then the worst happens, like, that would be devastating. Like, don't be afraid to shop around.
100%.
Like we've said, and I'll reinforce it, like, find your person.
100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll get into it later of some of the things that you've got into that's helped you mentally. And, mate, we do very similar in that sort of stuff, and that's why I think we've clicked so well, and we'll talk about it later. But so shortly after that attack, you deployed to Tonga, and talk me through this. Yeah, what was happening here on this trip?
Yeah, that was an interesting one, and it was kind of a one that never really got off the ground in terms of we didn't actually achieve anything. So on the Sunday night or the Sunday, we got reporting from Tonga that the MV Princess Ashika, which was a car and personnel ferry, had sunk in Tonga. And I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but a significant amount of people, 100 or so, had gone down with this vessel. For whatever reason, the Prime Minister at the time was with the King of Tonga in wherever they were, and said, look, we'll come and help you. So literally that Monday morning we went in. We knew there was something going on. The head shed weren't there, so we're like, we're all getting a trip to Tonga, boys. So we went off, played a bit of touch footy, and came back to work. And yeah, righto, boys, start packing your bags. Everyone's sort of, oh, well, he's got a rolled ankle, he can't go, so I better go for him, and a bit of friendly sort of
course,
trying to blade each other to get on the plane.
Mate, you want to deploy.
And every military person out there, it's not blading. Everyone wants to go and do their job.
100%.
Everyone's chomping at the bit, and whether that's Tonga to recover bodies, or a theatre of war somewhere else, or you know what, a sweet exchange trip to New Zealand, whatever it is, everyone
100%,
and everyone should want to do that stuff, and be doing everything they can to get there.
Well, you're not training to sit on the sideline.
That's my take.
You want to play the grand final, mate.
That's my take.
This is it.
And the ones that are and want to sit on the sideline, good, because you're one less person that I've got to compete with.
Exactly.
Sign me up. That's what I was there for.
Yeah.
So got on the plane later that afternoon from Amberley, flew out to Tonga. An amazing trip in the fact that it was, again, another very early informative experience for me. Unfortunately, it was just too deep and we couldn't return those bodies to their families. So that was the harsh reality of that trip.
Because how many metres are we talking?
Look, we were probably around 60 odd, which is getting, we have the ability to get to that depth, but the time spent at that depth, there was a lot of parameters, tidal movement, transits there, medical equipment, RCC, recompression chambers, all that. There was a huge amount of planning that needed to go into it, to the point where, someone had to make the call, and whoever that was said it was just not achievable for us, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent. Fortunately, I didn't have to make that call. But unfortunately, we had to leave them there to I guess, rest beneath the waves, as history sees it. So great for me to see how quickly it can be spun up, how quickly we can get somewhere and be prepared to do a job. But it was a very brief one. We were there for maybe 10 days or so, and then back into the swing of things. So short, sharp one for me.
So what's happening next? So you come back from that, and because we'll get into Afghanistan a little bit later, but Afghanistan's going off. There's things going, Middle East is going nuts.
Yeah.
What's happening in your career at this point?
So that's, and this is where we'll start Afghanistan. This is where it starts. That was my 5 metre target, i.e. that's where I was going. How I was going to get there, I had no idea. We'd already had a couple of guys go, and the rotations were continuing. Army couldn't quite keep up with the EOD guys, just due to the stress and the nature of the job and the injuries that were coming back. They just couldn't fulfill their requirements to have enough people as clearance divers. We have that skill set. We just need a bit of tuning up on being a soldier, basically. For me at the time, I was an able seaman still. I didn't hold the appropriate rank to go to Afghanistan. You had to be a leading seaman because that would allow you to do the courses. You were then, that's your kind of first level supervisory sort of rank, so you could manage others, and I just didn't hold any of the qualifications. But I had the drive. Like we talk about, take away the safety net, like I was that annoying kid in the corner. They're like, all right, who wants to go for this rotation? I put my hand up and they'd all laugh at me and go, mate, you're dreaming, you're an able seaman. And that happened for 12 months. But what that did is it put me into the elements of the EOD element. Mm-hmm. So I was then there with the guys that were training to go. I would deploy on training exercise, on workups. So I was very informed and very well trained on what to do. So I could conduct myself as good as any of the guys that were going. I just didn't hold the rank. And that was very intentional on my behalf, because I knew that sooner or later I'd either get promoted and go, or something had happened. Like, and if I didn't, you know what? I just got really good at that job. Fortunately, at the time, we had an American warrant officer, EOD, embed over to, I guess, mentor and on an exchange, Fred. And he saw my want. Americans do things very differently. Guess what? You're going, it's a war zone and we're going. So Australians a bit more risk averse. So I became quite good friends with him, used him as a mentor, a professional mentor. And he ended up backdooring me effectively onto an Army EOR course, so an Explosive Ordinance Reconnaissance. It's the first step into the EOD world. So I look back and I still thank that dude for just doing what he does and going, you know what, fuck it. We need people. We need qualifications. Just let's find a way to do it. And that's the way I think it should be done. And I followed that through my career of if you are competent and capable, then I'm gonna invest in you and I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt that you can do the job. So I went and did that course, and it'll be very pivotal for another story that'll come up later. But came back, qualified, again, able seaman. Sorry, mate. Cool. You're very good at what you do. You're qualified. You just don't hold the rank. Until it came to the point I was the only kid in the room. Either people had gone, people were getting promoted, people didn't want to go and were avoiding it, all the different scenarios. So they just kind of trying to look around and over me, and here's me with this big grin on my face, knowing that, my bags are packed. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Your number's going to come up.
Yeah. Mate, they've got no other option. And unfortunately, that's what happened. They sent me to Brizzy to 20 ED Squadron. I worked in with them, conducted the workups through the certification exercise and that sort of stuff. Became upskilled, so I was now an IED operator. I did the IED upskill course, so I was an able seaman. I could now work on live IEDs, which that just doesn't happen. It happened for that theatre of war because we were so low, but that never happened with anyone else in the Navy. Again, I'm quite proud of these things. They're things that no one ever did. And hopefully I set a bit of a precedence for others to say, don't take no for an answer. Go and do these things. Go and get them done. And yeah, that allowed me, like I said, my bags were packed and I was on a plane to Afghanistan in January 2012.
And I want to highlight this to the listener too, mate, because it's rare for Navy to, as you say, mate, you play in water.
Yeah.
You're now going to play in a sandpit. Yeah. And for you, I know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, and it's one of your good friends that was killed on that trip.
Yeah. Was
he was a pivotal help in you getting over there, wasn't he? Yeah, and I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, so Scotty, at his time of death, Corporal Scott Smith, but at the time, Private Scott Smith, you talk about mentors and stuff. He's a few years younger than me. I rolled up onto this course, the only Navy guy, all these dudes in green who were returned veterans of Afghanistan at that time, some of them through some special forces elements. And I was just looking at these guys and going, what the fuck have I got myself into? And Scotty being Scotty came over and pulled the piss out of me for being Navy. And he's a very jovial, friendly sort of dude, but also the most competent operator that I had probably come across. Just would joke around and then he'd stroll down and get something done. You're like, mate, how'd you do that? Or he'd look at a job and he's like, just go and do this, this and this. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, let alone being able to do that. So took me under his wing and we became really, really good mates. Got me to the point, I went to the point of what is called a CO's retest on that course, which is you've failed your 3 chances to pass the course. You then get a retest from another staff member. and I failed that. And then the CO comes out to assess you to see, so that everyone can put their hand on their heart and go, this guy's garbage and he deserves to fail. So I was really struggling. I just didn't have the background at that time, because it was early on in this EOD sort of transition.
Yep.
I just didn't have the background these guys had. They'd done 6 months in Afghanistan. They looked at all these jobs and went, mate, this is a training scenario. I've done that live. So I was, really, really struggling. And even on this CO's retest, and it was a couple of mortars. It was a very basic job. Went down, found the mortars. That's part of it, being the reconnaissance part of it. Go down, understand what they are, research them, say, right, I can 100% say this is this variant from this country, and I can then what's called render safe or conduct an action on that which will make it effectively inert or not function, and I can either pick it up and take it away or make it as safe as possible is, I guess, the easiest way to describe it. I was taking some sandbags down, and at that point I could take my number 3. Scotty was my number 3. He's rolling down, taking sandbags with me, and he's like, hey bro, what about that? I was like, fuck me. So there was a third one down there that I hadn't found. I was well into my task. You get I think it's 3 hours at the time. Normally the first 2 hours is taken up by finding, researching, practicing all these things. And I was probably into my 3rd hour by this time, and I'd found one that I was like, there goes my course. I'm done here. Like, I can't come back from this. Fortunately, it was a very basic piece of ordnance that I could research very quickly and understood it very quickly. So could put everything in place and got the tick in the box with because the staff obviously knew that I'd missed it. They're like, bro, you were bloody close. Like, you need to really polish up. So got the tick in the box, went back, continued to build on those skills. But that's just Scotty, like, so incredibly competent, incredibly kind with his time. We'd drive in and out of that course. He was living in Crow's Nest at the time. I was living in Manly, so we'd do a bit of carpooling. And he just downloaded this knowledge in a way that was not arrogant or...
You can understand it.
Yeah, I could understand it. And it was just him offering it. I could take it or leave it. It's not him saying, oh, I've done this and bragging about how good he is. That's not him at all. It's just a dude going, hey, like, here it is, do it. He came home with me for Christmas one year, him and his partner at the time leave. So we'll talk about that story later on. But it was very, very pivotal in me getting to a point where I was... At least I had the tick in the box to go to Afghanistan. I needed to polish that up, and I did get very good at what I needed to be good at. But at that very initial point, he was, mate.
But I think too, what it highlights, mate, is the willingness of you to keep persisting. And like as you say, you're a duck out of water, and I'll say that you're a duck out of water. These guys do this every single day.
Yeah.
You don't deal with that sort of stuff every single day because you're dealing with mines that are in the water, the ocean. And I'm sure that if the role was reversed, they probably would have struggled in the sense of coming to do what you did. But for you to keep persisting, and this is what I always say to anyone, is persistence will eventually get you to where you want to be. It's you got to continually persist. And for Scotty to have that, and I've listened to Hesto talk of him and how much respect he had for, and we'll talk about that day. Eventually he gave his life and saved so many others. Yeah, that just goes to show the caliber of the, and mate, regardless whether you're young or old, you can be a mentor to so many people. And we talked about mentors at the start of the podcast. Yeah. Mate, he, tick in the box. He's helping you get to where you want to be. And so you brush up your skills. And I want to ask you, are those ordnance, they're live, aren't they? You're dealing with live ordnance, or is it...
In training?
In training.
No. So they're all in it. So, but the pressure of the scenarios and of the course and the pressure that we put on ourselves is actually quite huge. There's a lot to go. We talked about reputations before. Like, if I failed that course, my reputation would have been through the floor. Like, being the first Navy dude to go on this Army course and go and get it done, and then to walk away with the tail in between my legs and say, oh, I failed, we won't bother with these Navy guys. Like, there was pressure. And I mean, it's perceived pressure. It's stuff that I put on myself.
Of course.
It's not real.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and I guess to further extrapolate on your question, generally, if we're doing EOD stuff, yes, we will do it live. For that specific course, it was inert because you need assessors, sitting right next to you to make sure that, like, so there's some very fine movements and TTVs, SOPs, however you want to say it, of stuff that you have to do. So they almost have to be over your shoulder to make sure that you're. So therefore, there's a safety factor of.
So you prodding and doing shit like that.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Measuring draws, you've got your head over this piece of ordnance, whatever it is, whether it's a 2,000-pound bomb or a tiny little anti-personnel mine, and everything in between.
It's just wild.
And it's. Do you know what? I love it. It's such a fun little problem to try and overcome.
Mate, I love you for that mindset of, like we talked about off air, the warrior mindset of the shooters.
Yeah,
mate, this is your warrior mindset of, it's all right, mate. It's a bomb. It's okay. It's like. No, it's not just a bomb.
And I completely understand.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with shooters and all sorts of guys, and they're like, mate, I love an assault. I love going through and doing what they do.
Yep.
They look at me and go, well, you're an idiot for doing what you do. Why would you do that? But it's vice versa. It's
mission.
Yeah.
It's what you're trained to do. And so the lead up happens. You get the tick in the box. And at this point, are you signed over to the army, or are you? So you're now. You're in the Navy, you hold your Navy rank, but you're now officially over in, basically you've gone from grey roll to green roll.
Yeah, exactly. And what that effectively looks like is I went from Navy cams to Army cams, from grey to green. Nothing else really changed.
So your pay doesn't change? Or?
Unfortunately, no. Well, and I guess as clearance divers, we do get paid relatively well, so I was probably getting paid more than most of the boys anyway, which is definitely a point of soreness with a lot of them, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I rubbed it in from time to time.
Yeah, of course. So then you start your lead up, and as you mentioned, you boots on the ground, 2012, mate. You're in A grade, mate. This is you're now living your dream that you've mission focused on getting to Afghanistan. You're now boots on the ground, mate. Talk me through this.
And I guess the important part to add in there is my partner is also pregnant.
So which we didn't touch on.
Which is fine. We'll get to that part.
Yeah, of course.
And exactly like you say, it's A grade now. There's no take backs. It's you make a mistake, you pay the price. But that was my dream. That's why we go back to that kid signing that dotted line.
Yep.
Like, I knew the gravity of that then, and I very much knew it now. And I was in my element. I fucking loved it.
Because who did you deploy with? You were with what battalion did you go over with?
I'm so bad with tab data stuff. I think it was part of 3RA battle group.
Yeah, okay, yep.
And then within that, the EOD team, so there's 3 EOD teams. So our call sign, my team call sign, or not my team, I was my team, our team, I should say. I wasn't the team leader. Was Wallaby 1, so it was Wallaby 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So that was our call sign. That was our team. We worked out of FOB Hadrian. Just ours.
So are you going over as part of the mentoring team, or what was your what was the mission?
Do you know what, the RTFs, MRTFs? I can never remember. We were an MRTF, but we did zero mentoring. We were out on the ground patrolling. Yes, we had sometimes now and then we'd have an Afghan patrol with us, but very, very rarely for where we were. There was. And for me specifically and the EOD team, we did zero mentoring. We were on the ground patrolling, looking for IEDs. So,
and I want to talk about that. I want to touch on, for you, your role as the EOD. Were you the lead EOD?
No, and again, it's similar to SF sort of thing that I have. I was an EOR at the time, so I was an able seaman. So I guess you'd have a team leader, a 2IC, and then there was 2 EORs under them. So they were the dudes that were downrange, and I did have some of these experiences, but they were the ones that were there. They're the rock stars. They're the ones walking down, taking IEDs apart, walking down, high-fiving everyone. And, and they very much did that, and they were very, very competent at it. I don't want to steal the light and say that I did something I didn't do, but I have my own experiences, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, of course, And for that, like, as you said, you in the training, live IEDs. What was it like that first time that you did come in interaction with a live IED?
Look, and again for me, pretty easy because there was no pressure on me. I'd set up tools or drive a robot down. Like, if it went bang, I'm safe.
Yeah.
So like, not even really a factor for me. Like there was excitement, but there was no pressure on me. It was on one of the boys to walk down there and do their thing, earn their rock star wage. And I say that in a complimentary way. They really are. Like that is a tough fucking job. So yeah, it was super easy for me. Sit back, watch them come back, and almost in awe, and just learning how someone can deal with that level of pressure and remain calm to walk down there on something that's intentionally designed to blow them up. Do what they need to do and return and go, sweet, righto. Like, because often you'll walk down there a couple of times. So come back, righto, we've got to do this, this, and this. I've done that. Sweet, set this up for me. Like that level-headedness to say, I've thought 3 steps ahead and I know what I need to do in 10 minutes time or after we can conduct this action is a level of mind that is very rare to be able to deal with that pressure.
And for you, mate, talk me through the first time outside the wire. What was that like?
Yeah, the first time was, like you said, welcome to A grade. It was definitely welcome to A grade. Again, fairly benign. We rolled out as a mounted patrol, so in vehicles, in a Bushmaster or PMV, depending on what you'd like to call it. And I was the rear gunner, which, again, was quite surreal. As you sort of said before, I'd come from driving a Navy ship on the piss in Singapore to now swinging out the back of a Bushmaster on a bloody Maximi 7.62 machine gun and it's Afghanistan. People are walking around the streets with AK-47s. You don't know whether that's a local farmer or a Taliban dude that's literally going to shoot you. There's a big difference there. So, like I said, surreal. I'm this Navy dude who thought I was killing it in my Speedos tanning in Sydney to all of a sudden find myself cruising the dusty streets of Afghanistan. So we rolled out, again, relatively benign. I was just taking it all in and that nervous excitement that goes on and is natural for that sort of area. And we were going to an Afghan National Police checkpoint is the first one. And as we were rolling in, we sort of rolled in on the side of a mountain, these big long mountain ranges. And we were so there's the green zone, which is where the rivers and the farming and stuff and most of the population lives. And then you've got the mountains. And we were sort of in between that because it's quite a safe area. It's hard to target people when you just pick your own roads so if you have a road, it's a pretty good place to put an ID. If you just cruise through the desert, then it's hard to target. So we were rolling in. I was very aware of a gunfight that was going down. Again, first time out, gunfight, Navy kid. Like, holy shit, this is real. Machine gun fire, Afghan National Police were engaging with local Taliban forces. And machine gun's very distinct. Everyone knows it. AK or larger machine guns. Righto, sweet. We know what's going on. And then there's those distinct sort of shots, which meant nothing to me at the time. And even that day didn't really mean much to me until I reflected a bit deeper. But sort of watching what was going on, and I could see the skirmish, but it was far enough away that I was swinging off this big machine gun. But I just wasn't. No one was engaging from our patrol, sort of a 5-car patrol. If we'd gone down and engaged, we would have asserted our dominance very quickly, but we just weren't required to. So we pulled into this Afghan National Police checkpoint, and we're staying there for the night. So once we all sort of settled down, everyone sort of got their bearings. I was cruising around with my colleague Goody, who was the other EOR in our team. And we were just sort of looking over into what was the green and then onto a mountain range, just taking it in. And I mean, like I said, the excitement, no body armour, no helmets, we're inside of a checkpoint. And the sort of crack straight through the middle of us, we're talking like almost shoulder to shoulder, and a sniper round straight through the middle of us, hit the ground behind us. So that was, and I laugh about it to this day, and I caught up with Goody not long ago, and he just electrocuted himself on his caravan, and he had that exact response, that giggle response that we looked at each other as little kids as we took cover and we laughed. We're like, holy fuck, laughing, like, what was that? So yeah, that was first time out, probably the first few hours, and I've nearly lost my head to a sniper, which really put things into perspective. And I didn't think about it at the time necessarily. Like it was, if you're going to a war zone like that, you'd be quite naive to think that things like that didn't happen. So I had definitely mentally prepared myself to say, shit's going to get real. I don't know what that looks like because I hadn't been there, but that was that stuff getting real. So we made our way back to CP, let them know the mortars, tried to drop a few mortars on these guys. They had a couple more shots, but they were pretty average snipers. Like they nearly got really lucky with us because the rest of their shots were not even close to the compound, let alone anyone's head. So, geez, I would have been the most unlucky guy in history to get shot by this dude. Our sniper guys tried to have a bit of a dig, but they were dug in and they were on an elevated position, so there was just zero chance. So a US jet actually came through and dropped 2 500-pound bombs on their position.
Wow.
And that
takes care of business.
Mate, that put a full stop on that one. But that was, again, so many learning points in that to say, look, the might of the military. These guys are two guys that probably couldn't even rub 20 cents together, are up there with a 50-cent round, nearly killed an Australian, and it takes us $1 billion jet with this ordnance to kill them. Like, really highlights Afghanistan.
Yep, and it was why they just played the waiting game, mate.
And,
you know, and it's good that you touch on that because I've spoken to a few veterans and they said, mate, we were destined never to win. It was just you look through the history of time, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
Alexander the Great couldn't conquer it. Napoleon couldn't conquer it. The Russians couldn't conquer it. Why? And
the most powerful country in the world.
Were we that naive to think that? Well, America was that naive to think that they could rule or conquer it. Yeah, it's just you can't win.
Yeah, history doesn't lie.
Exactly. There's a reason that it doesn't. And I'll say this, mate, from all the veterans that I've had on, you want to talk about resilience? It's the Afghan locals, of how they live in a country like that. Mate, I've never been there. You have. Mate, I've heard it's hot. It's like you're in, it's altitude of 3,000, you're 3,000 feet up.
Above sea level,
Above sea level. So there's another element. Yeah. Like, it's some of the harshest conditions that they've
got 2 seasons. It's bloody hot or bloody cold. When it's cold, you can't do anything. You can't grow anything. So you've got to grow all your food during the summer. They literally live in mud brick homes. Their farming and agriculture is amazing. They can make water go uphill. Like, the way they farm is amazing. I don't know how they do it. And you talk to anyone that's been there, they'll all say the same thing. Their aquaculture and agriculture is amazing.
Well, I've spoken to a couple of SAS boys, and one of them was a good mate of mine, and he said, if it wasn't such a dangerous country, he said, it'd be a great country to visit.
I would love to travel back there one day, and it's unlikely in my lifetime that it'll ever be stable enough. But it's a beautiful place. Really natural beauty. The mountains, the cave systems, through the green zone, if they could market a tourism, then go through the roof and probably bring some money into the country. But really nice place.
And I've heard as well is that it stinks, and because what people don't know, and for our non-military, they dry their feces out for the winter and burn their feces because to stay warm. And that's every veteran I've spoken to, mate, says the smell. It smells like shit.
Which is funny, like, it does, not as bad as Pakistan.
All right, okay.
That place.
Yeah, right.
Mate, the worst thing I've ever smelled. Like,
wow.
I got a pretty bad gag reflex. We were in there for 3 days or something, and like the whole time I was gagging and I couldn't even go outside the ship, but even inside the ship it stunk.
Wow.
Different operation, different experience.
Yeah, of course. Wow.
Pakistan, no good.
Yeah, right. So that happens, mate, and sorry to take you off course a little bit there, but so the crack happens, you're going, oh shit, okay, I'm in, this is real now. All right, cool, rounds are coming down. All right, and talk me through the next part of the trip and what's happening.
So after that we rolled back out, went back to our FOB. I think it was a 2 or 3 day op, that one, just to go out and get our bearings. Very early sort of nursery patrol is what we call it, just to understand the area and how kinetic it is. And turns out it was quite kinetic at some points. But rolled back in, and then days were long and weeks were quick, as the saying goes. Like, some days it'd be just boring as hell with bits of excitement in there. Like, a number of things happened, and so the next major milestone or event, is, I think the next, and I'm pretty average with dates, so I'll talk in generalizations of specific days, but a couple of things happened in a row where nothing happened, but very nearly everything happened, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
I'll expand on that. The first one being, we're out on a patrol, dismounted patrol, so on foot, 20 odd blokes. I think our whole EOD team was there, so 4 of us. And I'd somehow found myself at the rear of the patrol, so tail and Charlie, if you want to call it, rear security, whatever that looks like. Just the way that we were bounding and moving through this small town for a cordon search. So you put a cordon around the town, then you go through and search for whatever, whether it's a person, a high-value target, whether it's ordnance, whether it's caches, whatever it is. There's something different each time. So for this one, we were moving through, and I found myself at the rear. And where I was, we were on an elevated position in terms of the road went down a slight hill, but as the road went down, there was a koala wall or a mud brick wall. So as the road went down, the wall got taller until it flattened out at the bottom. So I was looking at the roof of this koala or mud brick home. The rest of the patrol was moving down. I was, again, rear security, just watching what was going on, and there was a bit of movement on the roof. They were drying corn up there, which is fairly common. And this shadow appeared. They have these, it's almost like a door that comes up with a ladder that goes up to access the roof and dry their corn out. And there was a shadow that came up in there, and I was like, okay, I'm aware of that, not really too concerned. There wasn't really much threat going on. And then 2 younger kids, I'd say between 5 and probably 8, came out and just looking at the patrol, and like very much cued my interest and my awareness that, like, you're doing, I guess, threat assessments, yeah? There was no one else around, so these 2 were my greatest threat at this stage. They were all I knew. And they were sort of running back between this window, and there was something else going on in the window, but it was too dark to see. So I was just sort of loosely paying attention, but trying to see what was going on, making sure the patrol wasn't leaving me behind. I was close enough along to then jump back in and move back into my position. And as I was sort of paying attention, these kids ran back in, and like there was a bit of a kerfuffle or something going on between them and someone that was in the window. Now, for context, it's not uncommon for the Taliban to use children and particularly for mentally challenged children as suicide bombers, to go and use them to throw anti-tank grenades and those sort of things, or just basic blast and frag grenades. So that was in the back of my mind too. I'm watching, and they sort of, to me, looks like they're handing each other something. So my threat had gone up at this stage. I then brought my weapon up and had these children in a sight picture. I was off safe, and I was ready to go. Still not knowing what was happening, but just monitoring. And I distinctly saw them give something to one of these children, and that's when I was. That's the point where this is go time. Like. For anyone that's shot a weapon, and particularly for the military guys out there, they'll get this. But someone who is going to shoot something takes up an amount of trigger pressure. And the way that you're generally taught is that when that weapon fires, it should be a surprise. So you're slowly applying this pressure until all of a sudden it goes bang. So got this kid in my sights, off safe, applying some pressure, not ready to engage, but...
You're ready.
But, mate, you don't get any closer than that. So I watched these kids walk a couple of metres over to the edge, and we're looking over there, and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, are these kids about to drop a grenade on my teammates, my friends, the dudes that I'm charged with being back here looking after? That's my one job in this moment, in this world. Are they about to drop a grenade on them, or do they have nothing in their hand? Like, there was something, but I just fucking didn't know. And I'm looking down this sight, like, continuing this, and this trigger pressure, like, it takes not much. Like, you put your finger on the table, it doesn't take much more pressure than that. And I'm in all sorts of knots in my stomach, but like just a no man's land of, do I shoot this kid, or do I let my friends get blown up? What the fuck is going on?
And that's a big moral dilemma.
Man, like, you look at, like, the perception of soldiers is that they're just dumb cannon fodder. You put them in that scenario, and me as a sailor, but there would have been hundreds of soldiers in very similar positions. These guys have to make this decision in a split second mate, it doesn't come any more. And I wasn't stressed at that time. There was zero stress. I knew what my job was. It was either shoot this kid or not. Like very black and white.
Yep.
And excuse the language, but like very, very quickly after that, through our internal team comms, was these cunts are throwing rocks at us. And that's when I can understand what's just happened, relieve that pressure and go, if I'd shot that kid, there wouldn't be any ifs, buts or rumours about war crimes. I would have been the guy that had just murdered a child in cold blood for no reason because he threw a rock at someone.
Yep.
Irrelevant of all the other stories that are going around, like that's as black and white as it comes. And that was like, I can just put that down to sheer luck. I don't know what the fuck to call that.
And I want to highlight this to the listener, is that, mate, that radio chatter coming through to you is the only reason that kid's alive.
Only reason.
That's the only reason that kid is alive, because you see a rock, it looks like it's round. It looks like a grenade. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, like a few days before that, I nearly had my head blown off by a sniper. Exactly.
And now I'm in this scenario. Mate, and like I say, I will never ever celebrate myself for what the decision I made, but I will highlight the fact that these people in these situations are in some incredibly challenging split-second moral, ethical decision-making processes that are going on in their head. And you know what? Sometimes we're going to get it wrong. And I'm not defending anyone or suggesting anything, but the point is I lived through that and I'm so fucking lucky. And I look back on that and now having my own son.
I was just about to say, now you're a father.
Mate, like... Yeah. I don't even know how to explain that any...
Well, that's as close as it gets, mate. Like, that is, as I say, and I said it to you before we jumped on, that's the tightrope, mate. Yeah. Like, that is... Yeah. And it's a spring that is almost ready to just go bang and explode. Yeah. That's... Yeah. You can't, mate. And that's what it is.
It gives me the goosebumps and the hibbity-jibbities even thinking about...
Mate, and I thank you for sharing that because it is morally, and this is what people need to hear, mate, that we weren't there. You were. Yeah. You, as I said, mate, boots on the ground, you were there. You were in country, mate. And this is where this needs to be put in context that, as you said, mate, split-second decision, and it's only that radio chatter came just on. Hey,
sheer luck.
Throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Off trigger.
Done.
That's, if you hadn't heard at that moment, it might have been a different story.
And do you know what? What if it was a grenade and I didn't do it?
Exactly. And like you said back when you froze.
Yeah. And that was like, I was very conscious and there was no freezing in that scenario. Like there was one of two ways it could have gone. And through, like, that's my lottery ticket. I won the lottery that day because it wasn't a grenade and I didn't shoot the kid. Like the three options and I lucky dip picked the right one.
Yeah, 100%.
That's at the end of the day, that's what it was.
And that, what comes to mind, mate, is is American Sniper.
Yeah.
Where he's looking down the scope and he's like, don't pick it up, don't pick it up, pick... And
then,
great example of... And then he goes off and goes... And, and the guy goes...
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you can.
That physical outlet of...
Well, emotions just leaving your body.
Fuck. And do you know what? Through that trip, like, I never really reflected on that because it was something that didn't happen. But years after, and even now, I reflect on it more, that it's just one that I got away with. Like, I got away with not being shot, but something happened, not being shot. But something happened then. There was a physical action.
Correct.
When I was blown up in the vehicle, like something happened.
We haven't even touched on that.
And we'll get to, like, something happened then. But this one, it was like, how do I reconcile with that in my mind?
Exactly.
Like, and it's, Yeah.
Yeah, that's where straight away I thought of American Sniper. And just... like your emotion that is leaving your body going, that is a moral decision that, as you know, you're a trained regardless whether it's Navy, Air Force, Army, but Army is that first, you are trained as an infantryman to take life.
Yeah, everyone's a soldier.
Everyone's a soldier. That's your job. That is your main role.
And do you know what? I was a soldier in that scenario.
You were a soldier, mate. And as you say, it's one of those times that, thank God, as you said, you got the lottery ticket, and you picked the right, and the winning numbers came up, because who knows, mate? You could have been, if you had chosen the other option, or the other option had to come where it was,
we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No,
so life would be very different.
Yeah, so. Holy shit, roller coaster of emotions already, mate. First, in country, get shot at, bang, yep, all right, and then this happens. Yeah. And then you just mentioned you got blown up. So, mate, let's talk about that now.
Yeah. So, again, let's say a couple of weeks, few weeks later, whatever it is, patrols in and out, always stuff going on. And this one, obviously a big event for me, but probably an even bigger event the night before. So we were again out. We were occupying an Afghan army compound at this stage, and it was very common for us to bounce between army, Afghan police, whatever. They were almost safe zones that you could pepper pod between and hang out there for the night relatively safely. I mean, when I say relatively safely, the drug use and the pedophilia and that sort of stuff that was going on, particularly the heroin use, is like. Safe is a very interesting word when you talk Afghanistan, and this story will highlight that is that the night before I was blown up, we were occupying an Afghan army compound, like I said, and when it was, I don't know what the time was, and the records will show this because it was a significant event when green on blue, and we lost I think a couple, three Australians,
29th of August.
Yeah, there you go. And I appreciate that because, like I said, I'm useless with these dates. So we were occupying somewhere quite disjointed from where that occurred. And I think I was even just hopping into my swag at the time, and sort of word passed around fairly quietly that something had happened and that we need to take the weapons away from the Afghan army guys, because we didn't know whether it was a further, more complex attack and that was going to continue throughout the night or whatever. So you can imagine an Afghan army group of guys within the base. They don't know what's happened. They only know that we've rolled in and we now don't trust them. We've taken those weapons away and we're now holding them in a basically a room, saying, we're not telling you anything. We're taking all your shit away from you. We don't trust you, and that's it. So that's what we did. We occupied that, and we left quite early that morning. As we were leaving this compound, only within probably 400 or 500 metres, well within visibility, well within weapons range, all that sort of stuff. And on what was a somewhat marked road, not all that, nothing got searched because we were safe. I would drive and walk that road every day of the week, and I'm not saying that I'm a high researcher, an engineer or whatever. I do very well understand checkpoints and what needs to be done and how to search and what are going to be vulnerable points. That is inherent within the job. So I assessed it. My assessment at the time means nothing. I'm an able seaman, nobody. But I'm confident within that road that we're driving that it didn't need to be searched. Turns out it did, because about 7 o'clock that morning, as we were driving down, we, on our front left-hand side, the Bushmaster hit what is assessed to be a 15 to 20 kilo main charge IED. So that wakes you up pretty quickly.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've talked about this a lot, so I don't have a whole lot of emotion tied to that anymore, which is nice. Compared to the kid story, I haven't told that publicly. So I'll talk about this very matter of fact. It is what it is, and that's why I say it wakes you up very quickly. It's a funny sort of alarm clock. But what that looks like is you don't hear the bang. I didn't hear the bang. You sort of feel something. But my first and most distinct memory, and I still get dreams about this memory, is just complete blackout. And I don't know whether that's me losing consciousness. I don't think it was. What I think it was is the dust that envelops the car, and just because the dust is so fine and just complete blackout. The vehicles don't have a whole lot of windows anyway. There's your windscreen and your passenger windows up the front and one very small one at the back. So I'm sitting in the back seat. Goody is actually out of the turret when we got blown up. So yeah, I just remember complete blackout and the distinct thought of, well, this is dead. I'm now dead. Okay, this is not what I thought dead was. And so very complex thoughts going on of what the fuck has just happened to me. And as it sort of, and like what is, I think seconds could be, I don't know. I just don't know. Again, that trauma response of sort of blocking bits and pieces out.
Yep.
Very much, in the moment. And Goody sort of came down from the rear turret being out, effectively from his waist up outside the vehicle as it's just been blown up. So, different experience for him. But he comes down, he's got like skiing goggles on, obviously keep the dust out when you're driving down the road, obviously to stop the sun as well. And you laugh about when people say you were scared and you could see the whites of their eyes. I could fucking see these whites of these eyes through these tinted goggles. And again, that, like, Marv, our team leader, he's like, I fucking knew this would happen because we'd had a few incidences through the time where there was, for me and for our thoughts within the team, there's just been a few risks that we'd got away with places that we'd occupied, things that had happened. And we were a bit on edge about a few things. So when we were the second vehicle in the order of march, so the chances of a second or any other vehicle are relatively low, depending on what sort of IE it is. If it's just a pressure plate, you'd expect the first car to just roll over it. That's what we think it was, but you'll never really know because it all got consumed in the blast. So yeah, the first thing I heard is I fucking knew this would happen, and I remember that quite distinctly. And as the light sort of came back in, Goody's down, I can see him, like, righto. And you can't really see, but everyone's sort of just touching each other. Like, as soon as you touch them, you're like, and you get that, almost that acknowledgement with a body movement or a distinct hand of shake or something, like a yes, I'm okay type thing, because your ears are fucking ringing and all sorts. So sweet. The four of us in the back, we knew that we were at least good enough to be able to conduct the appropriate, let's say, immediate action drills or whatever, to let everyone else know in the packet or in the convoy that we were okay. Two dudes in the front seat, they obviously caught the brunt of it, particularly the crew commander on the front left-hand side. I've got this memory of them turning around with these grins on their faces of like, again, that holy fuck, we got away with this, we're good. And then minutes later, like, carrying them out because they've got compressed spines and whatever else. So it's interesting what that adrenaline dump did to them, for them to feel so fine and to smile and to almost be excited, like that stupid boyish, like, we got away with that, boys, like, we're good. And then all of a sudden they're on bloody stretchers and getting medevaced out because their backs are cactus. So a really interesting 12-hour period of from knowing that we'd just lost 3 Australians and then going through that. Again, reflecting on my partner at the time being pregnant, things are starting to compound, right? That's 3 events that I've kind of got away with by the skin of my teeth. Things are really starting to compound a bit, and I wouldn't say that I really dwelled on it at the time, but
just cracking on with the mission.
Yeah, but so the next time we end up getting flown back to TK 3 or 4 days later for medical screening, which bit of a waste of time screening someone 3 or 4 days later. You've come to terms with everything. Like they're going to try and assess my cognitive state. I'm like, mate, should have done that a couple of days ago. It's probably pretty different to right now. But that's what happens. It's a war zone. Things aren't perfect.
Yep.
I'm not blaming anyone for that. But the point that I'm trying to make is driving out of TK to go back to our fob that we were occupying a few days later or whatever. I was shitting myself. I was in that rear turret now. Goody, I was like, bro, you've just been blown up hanging out of that thing. How about you just stay in the car for a bit? It was either me or him. I was like, probably my turn to get up there, mate. So, yeah, like going out of there, I was, I guess, anxious, nervous, whatever that, like.
Well, it's something you touch on. I don't mean to cut you off.
Go, please.
That you touch on it as well, that the green on blue had just happened. And then not even 24 hours later, we have the fallen angel.
Yeah.
With the other, Merv McDonald and Nate Gallagher.
Yeah.
And then you guys are blown up as well.
Yeah.
This could have been the worst period of our...
Skin of our teeth.
Like you're saying, like, and it just sprung into my head. I'm like, holy crap, like that's just come into my head that, like, skin of your teeth, you're getting away with these. Like
so lucky. Like all three of those events, shot, shooting child, blown up, like just through sheer, I don't even know, the grace of God, the lottery ticket, whatever it is. Yeah. Like I've used a lot of my lives at this stage. But I celebrate getting blown up. I'm so lucky that happened, because we returned to TK a few days later, whatever it is, like I said. Scotty was deployed at the same time. We were in contact here and there when either of us were by our phones or whatever. So I caught up with him. We actually went into his compound and got on the terps pretty heavily. And that was the last time I saw him. So,
mate, as we said, this deployment was, everything you wanted and more. And as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, your good friend who helped you at the start and got you on to this deployment, Scotty Smith, mate, is killed in action. And how does that affect you going forward?
Mate, that's an interesting day. We were at the FOB Hadrian that day, and it was kind of almost like a nothing day. There wasn't much going on. We'd recently returned from patrol. We didn't have one planned for a couple of days, so it's sort of refurb everything, get ready to go again, get a gym session in, make sure we've like eaten everything and the trucks are ready to go and all that sort of stuff, the usual stuff to get ready for further patrols. And like I'd normally do, I'd try and ring home like mid-morning. And I don't know whether I was the first one, but one of the first people to go and jump on a phone and realise the phone lines are down. And that's a pretty good indication very quickly once you've been there for a while. If something bad happens, the phone's down.
Comms black, isn't it?
Comms black, yeah, which for those that don't realise, it's so we can't call home and say that something's happened or someone's passed away or been KOA or WIA or whatever that looks like. So we quickly realised, and that gets around pretty quickly. Phones are down, something bad's happened. We were obviously dislocated from the main base in TK, so we didn't have any information. And Scotty was based out of the Special Forces base or Special Forces compound within the Tarankat base. We slowly got word of units, of what unit it was, what age it was, and very early on, I call it sixth sense, I don't know what it was, but I just had a really bad feeling for whatever reason. And as the unit came through, which was SOA, Special Operations Engineer Regiment, my concern grew because obviously I knew quite a few of those guys, and I obviously knew Scotty really well. Then the age came through, and I knew Scotty's age, and that was enough for me to go, all right, well, I now know who it is. That feeling, that gut feeling that I have grown to trust, that fucking broke my heart. Having been able to see him the weeks before after we were blown up, and having that time with him, and he'd taken me through some of their labs and stuff and shown me the jobs that they'd done and some of the stuff that they've recovered. And I just looked at him, and I remember being in this lab looking at a suicide vest. And I remember looking at him just saying, mate, just fucking tone it down. Like, and he didn't have that in him. Like, that's him. He's going to do everything to the best of his ability, and he's going to do a really good job of it. And talking through his stories that he had over there, which are not dissimilar to mine, but in very different sort of circumstances, and quite a bit more kinetic environments. But yeah, I just reflect on that, oh, mate. Just fucking tone it down. And unfortunately, he lost his life doing what he does, being the courageous warrior that he is, and looking after others, and being the first one to go into these rooms and walk these paths and do stuff that very few people could and will and have done. And unfortunately, he paid the ultimate price for that, and that was a really tough thing to reconcile with, and to know that, particularly that he got me through that course. He ducks that course. He was the best person on that course, and I was clearly the worst. And he's the one that dies. and I'm the one that lives, that's hard to deal with. And again, different environments, different this, different that. But to see the best of the best go, it really makes you question your abilities and why the rest of us get away with it.
It's not too dissimilar, mate, to Camp Ed. And, you know, same thing of exactly like Scotty, you know, a warrior, led from the front, and as you say, mate, like, and another one springs to mind, Brett Wood, like all these dudes that, across all, I'm not just saying those, but the battlefield, it didn't matter. It took no prisoners.
Yeah.
Like didn't matter of class, reputation, or anything. These guys were taken,
and they go down in history as heroes. Like, as much as I'd love to have him here and talk shit with and have him pull the piss out of me and tell me I'm a loser because I'm in the Navy, all the shit that he used to do, and all the funny shit, but he goes down as a hero, and he deserves that. And that makes it. It doesn't make it okay or easier, but I'm glad that the history books will be written in that way.
100%. And I know there was a guy that I spoke to on the potty, and he said that it was a similar conversation to, like you said, to, hey, Scotty, pull back a bit. Cam had the same thing where it was, you know, like they said, hey, man, the way you're jumping off the back, just take it easy, like, and and just focus, man, on the job. And, you know, and Scotty, as Hesto puts it, mate, save the guys.
Yeah.
Like, he went forward, and, you know, it was, and I don't know the circuit, so I'm not going to comment, but, you know, he was rendering a safe passage for the guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. You lose Scotty, that's a shit day for you. I want to talk, mate, about your mindset going back outside the wire after that's happened.
Yeah, hard question, great question. And I don't know. Like, my mindset didn't change the whole time I was there. And I'd, by this stage, been through a number of different events, and there's still a couple that we haven't talked about. But my mindset was always that it wasn't me going out, it was we going out. Like, I was there with a team. If I wasn't part of that team, and there was actually one particular day where my wife at the time was supposed to give birth, so I didn't go, and it was they were just going down the road to do a range clearance, and I hated it because I was like, what if? Like, I could be there contributing, and I was back there sitting on my hands doing nothing. So that was really hard. So I think the answer is that you just turn up for your mates that are next to you. And that sounds a little bit like a cliche and a staff answer, but it's honestly the truth. And it's much easier to go out with someone and do it. And for me to say, well, I'm going out as a team rather than I'm going out with me. It's a really, really tough one to talk about. Yes, I was scared. Like, I can say I was scared. Like, I love life. I love being alive. I'm not the guy that can sit there and say, I'm not scared of death. I will go into battle, or I'll go to war. I'll do this, and I'll face death. That's not me. Like, I like being alive. I really like experiencing this thing that we call life. So yeah, I can't say I'd go out and I was scared or nervous or anxious or whatever that picture looked like. But I would not let that. It goes back to that story in the boat with me not diving. Like, I would not go out there and let that affect my capacity to contribute to that team. So that was me. That was my mentality. I'm going out here to do a job. I'm going to fulfill my job within our team, and I'm going to be part of bringing that team or that patrol or that group of people home in whatever little piece that I played. And I'm not going to pretend that I was, in the grand scheme of things, anything big or whatever. I did a very small job within a large team. So that was my mindset. Get in, get it done, and hopefully we all come home.
Yeah. Because I haven't asked that before, and we often ask, you know, what's it like getting in contact? But I've never asked that question of, well, what's the mindset like? You've just lost a really close mate that is, as you said, the pinnacle, one of the best, and then you're going back out to do your job. looking back now, mate, it's hard to fathom that.
Yeah.
Just crack on with the job.
Yeah,
like,
and
mission, and it's that warrior mindset, mate.
Yeah, like I was shitting myself, but what's my option? Say I'm not going anymore, throw my toys out of the cot, and then someone fulfills my role, and we're in the same spot, aren't we?
Yeah.
I have a job to do, and I understood the gravity of that job the same as everyone else there did. And you know what? None of them were pulling out. They were probably scared too. But you go in and you look after your mates. Like, it's very much a military thing, isn't it? That you look after your mates.
Same as first responder, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
Same. It's. I take my courage from others around me.
Yeah, exactly. Great way of putting it.
That's what I do. When someone else, and mate, this morning I took courage from what you with the half a degree plunge. Like, I saw you do it, and I went, "Fuck, Ash is fucking killing it.
Yeah,
I can do it too."
Inspire others by action.
Exactly right, man. And mate, as you mentioned, so that happens. You go back outside the wire, but then during this, mate, and we haven't touched on it. How long was this deployment?
6 months.
A lot's fucking happened.
There's a bit going on, yeah.
Mate, I'm now going to touch on this. During this time, your son's born.
Yeah.
Still's born.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit. Add this into the mix, mate.
Yeah.
So, talk me through that day.
Yeah, again, and that day we were all back at the fire, an off day for whatever reason, and I rang my partner at the time, and she had started contractions, and I have very little knowledge of birth because I didn't see any of it,
course.
And I missed most of the pregnancy, and I missed the birth, and then I came home to a sort of 2.5-month-old child. Yeah. So I sat on the phone, I listened to the birth, but I was very emotionally distracted and not available at all because I had so much other shit going on. They knew nothing about what had happened because I knew that there was how much stress that would add to her life that she just didn't need at the time. And even returning back to Australia, a few months later, I was sort of handed my son that wasn't my son. Like, I had no paternal instinct at all. I knew that this was my kid, so that was really hard to understand, and to come down off this adrenaline high of Afghanistan and what that was, to then come back and fit in to be this dad and have a period of time off work for paternity leave and then post-deployment leave and all that sort of stuff. Really challenging adjustment, and I fell in love with that kid really, really quickly, and that hasn't stopped. But tough period of time to sort of almost be throwing this kid like a footy and look at it and almost feel like it is a footy. I'm like, just throw
like an object.
Throw it straight back to you because that's what you do with these things that you're not attached to. But it only took me literally a couple of days, and I was head over heels, and that hasn't changed. Yeah,
and I still see it now. But like that, throw that into the mix, and I know we're nearly getting towards the end of Afghanistan. Is there any other significant moments on that trip that you can remember that you sort of had pivotal moments on that trip that you can think of?
Look, there's so many funny little anecdotal stories and stuff, and then I talk about the ones the ones that we talked about where there's a real action, like an explosion or something. We had a hand-in of a big weapons cache from conventional weapons to IED parts and main charges, all sorts of any and all bits of explosives, landmines, old Russian stuff to modern stuff that had been turned into IEDs or all sorts. From it was being held at, I think it was Afghan National Police Base in Duraywood. So they just cruised into their ute full of fucking explosives and just pulling them out and chucking them all on the ground. And our team leader was going through and making sure it's all okay. And there was a lot. So we were all sort of getting involved and whatever. And there was an old Russian TM-57 anti-tank mine. So a big, this thing's designed to take down a tank. And it had an improvised electrical det. So the Taliban, the Taliban would make Detonators out of normally old pens. They'd cut the pen in half, glue one end, fill it with quite sensitive explosives, put some wires in there, and it's now an electrical det. Very, very crude, but very effective. And this anti-tank mine had a detonator in it. Now, for any EOD guy out there, everyone knows that if there's a det inside, like, you just don't take it out for the reason that it may be booby trapped. So you take it out, it goes bang. So also one of, it was there, wires were hanging out. I was taping up the wires, doing a few bits and pieces that we need to make it as safe as possible. And as I moved, I was wearing gloves. You'd normally always wear thick work type gloves. And it caught on where the tape had looped over, caught on that and pulled this det straight out of this anti-tank mine. So that's something that you would never do. The only way that you would do that is you would connect up something to it and pull it out from a distance, so that if that does go bang, if there's a booby trap within that, which is very real and was real in that theatre of war, the same as Iraq and many others. So again, that was one that I was just like, just a holy shit moment. I'm like, that's another one that I've just dodged. Like, very benign and nothing really happened. But I looked at that and I'm like, mate, like, how many more of these things can you keep getting away with?
Yeah.
Like, and it'll speak to the EOD guys out there will get it. Like, and they're probably out there just shaking their head going, you're a fucking dickhead. Like, because that's, if I heard someone saying that, I would think the same thing. But it's what happened, and it's like, that's life. And like,
you're still here to tell the tale.
Call it a mistake. Like, yeah, it was. Like, I wasn't careful enough. And that's what happened. And I learned that lesson. Like, and I tell you what, it was a pretty big lesson to learn. And I got,
But it's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah.
Like, it just, sometimes it happens.
We're all human. Like,
that's right. Exactly. There's a human element in everything that, and I always say it when I hate the word perfection, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You can strive for excellence,
Yeah.
but perfection doesn't exist because there's a human element in that.
well, I think it's important to talk about our shortfalls or our mistakes, or because
100%.
we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And for people that tell these stories about their wins, like, mate, everyone has a loss.
Yep.
And I've got away with a few of them, but I've also had my losses too.
But I think too, it's really what you touch on there, mate, is that winning doesn't teach you anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
got, like, sometimes from your greatest losses or your greatest failures comes your greatest success.
Yeah.
And winning doesn't give you anything.
Yeah.
If anything, it just goes, oh, cool, you won. Like, that's great. Your hard work it's got you that win or whatever. But I know for me, my greatest failures have turned into my greatest success and my greatest growth.
Yeah.
Like the growth that I've had from those failures, where I'm questioning, well, what am I doing? Same thing.
In the coaching that I do, that is one of the key messages that I, particularly for young men, whether it's sports and those sort of things, like, there's disappointment that comes from loss, there's sadness, anger, frustration, whatever that was, but there's also a huge opportunity for growth and improvement. Like, let's go football match, whatever it is. Let's analyse how you played that game. Righto, where'd you make a mistake? Here, and here. You let someone break a line here. Why did that happen? Because you weren't holding position, or this or that. Right, now you're a better player because you can see that. And now you understand the results from that.
Yep.
So you will not let that happen again. Therefore, you're now a better player. And I need to hold myself to that same level of accountability. If I fuck up, then I need to say, you know what? I need to be held to account for that. I need to improve myself, and people get to hold me to account for that as well.
100%.
Like I said, there'll be guys out there that after that story looking at me and like, take away my credibility, whatever. I don't care. Like, because if you can tell me that you've done everything perfect, then hey, hats off to you.
100%, mate. And I think, as you said as well, there's a gracious way to lose too, and sometimes that's the forgotten message too. That there's a gracious way to lose, and sometimes it's that flip of the coin, 50-50.
Yeah, man.
Like, mate, it could have been booby trapped and we might not be here.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things that you learn, that lesson. You didn't repeat it. So, and that there's the win in itself. There's, okay, yep, shit, all right, I own my mistake, and then you move forward. And mate, this 6 month period, holy shit, man! Like, you have faced so many life and death situations that most people don't face in a lifetime.
Yeah,
you face
mate.
that in 6 months. So you finish your deployment at the end of 2012 in December. You come back to Australia. How are you travelling mentally at this point? You mentioned that stills, you get back, still. How are you coping mentally?
Yeah, and I will also make the point that these are my stories, but I was in a team of, like, I'll say the 4 core EOD guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they share at least a few of those stories. So, therefore, they've got those same things as well. So, the point that I'm making is these people that go there, like, this is my story on a podcast, but they have the same things that have happened, and build that out to the thousands of, let's just say, Australians that went there and fought outside the wire, had these, and even inside the wire from rocket attacks and all that sort of stuff, insider threats. They've all got these stories. So, like, while mine may be in the limelight for this particular podcast, like, everyone out there has them. So I want to make that point.
Yeah,
that,
100%.
I think that's important. I don't want to take
absolutely.
away from anyone else's.
Absolutely.
So answer your question, how am I traveling mentally? Not all that good, to be honest. If I'm being truthful to myself.
Yep.
I really, like, compounded trauma is not good, particularly when you're trying to hide it. When I tried to hide it through that whole trip from my family, from anyone else, from my team, and they were all hiding their own shit from me and each other. Like, that's what you do. You try and put it away and compartmentalise to turn up for your mates and get the job done. Then when you come home and you just come off that adrenaline high and take that breath, and you're like, oh, well, where do I kind of fit in back here? How do I fit into being a dad, a husband, all these other things, all these other, like, Afghanistan was fucking easy. I knew that I didn't have a name, I just knew that I had a position and a job to do. Simple. Come back, be dad, be husband, be son, be brother, be friend, be this, be that. Really tough. And I really almost immediately started drinking quite heavily, which it made it easy. Like, drink to forget, drink to remember, drink to numb, drink to show emotion. Like, it ticked every box for me. Like, and it didn't matter what the scenario was. Alcohol would get me to the right place for that scenario. And that went on for many, many years. After that, I'll say, I don't think controlled's the right word, but I would use it as a tool. And through all the other operations after that, I regularly would go and do something and then just obliterate myself for a day or 2 days or whatever that looks like, to, I'll say decompress, it's not the right word, but forget or just deal with that stress that I put myself under. And those experiences from Afghanistan, and probably to some degree with Paul's incident, really showed me what can go wrong. So I really sat at it, like, you look at a baseline, I sat quite a bit above that because I was always preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. And preparing for the worst really put me at that almost dangerous level that you operate. Like, you talk about PTSD and being hyper-vigilant. Like, I still have a bit of hyper-vigilancy, but particularly when I was serving and particularly on operations, I was another level just because, and as I got more senior, meant that I was more worried about the people that were under me. So you get that burden of leadership, which also I love and loved, but it really is a challenge to worry about those people under you and know what happened to me at such a junior rank, to then know what the potential outcome is for them and know that I'm self-medicating on alcohol and fucking this and all these self-destructive behaviours, to know that I'm now charged with putting these other younger or more junior ranked people through that same or similar experiences. So yeah, that was a real challenge, and I really struggled to separate work and family life. I'd often leave work, come home, start work, log on, just try and continually fill my life with stuff to detract from the fact that I was struggling. Like, you look at, I'm not in any way saying I'm an overachiever, but you look at overachievers, there's often a reason, because they're filling their life with stuff to avoid something. And that's what I was doing. I try and forget about the fact that I was really always on edge and just looking for threats. Like even to the point of driving down the road. Like I've had this conversation with quite a few guys, but like driving down the road when you come home, and even now I'm like, that would be a great spot for an ID. If I was going to lay an ID in my street or wherever, I'm like, that's the spot. Like it's not a normal thought.
No,
it's not at all a normal thought.
Not at all.
But I don't think I'll ever lose that.
No. That's you're accustomed to that.
Yeah.
Like that's what you lived for so long, and that's, you know. And people say, oh, it's 6 months, but it's 6 months of heightened.
Oh mate.
Yeah, like hypervigilance.
Yeah.
For 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, and it, like exactly that. It's, of course you're not going to come back, and you're a changed person, mate.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I'd go, oh, something.
You speak to, if it's a shooter, like if you say to them, every time you walk through a door, are you doing a door assessment? Which way does that door open? Where's this? Where's that? Where's your blind spots in your room? Where's your exits?
Yeah.
Like
They
all
know.
these sort of things.
Yep.
Like people inherently have that trained into them, and it becomes a safety factor for them because they know that they're looking after themselves and more importantly their mates. So that stuff, you can't train it back out.
No.
You're stuck with that.
And I know it too. Like I whenever I sit at a cafe or something, I know where every exit is. Like
Yeah.
it's just ingrained into you because you do it in the fires as well,
Yeah.
where you go, well, where's your exit?
Yeah.
Where's your exit? You know where your exit is.
Yeah.
Like it's something that it'll never leave you. That
Yeah.
hypervigilance always stays with you. And like, so that's happening. Still, like you're back, and then at that point too, did you feel, because you'd gone green, like were you like, shit? Well, I've been 6 months in green. Now I'm going back to grey again. I'm now going, and what happens next with your career? Like, was it hard to go back from green to grey?
Yeah, it was really hard. Like from such a high tempo environment to going back to the Navy, which wasn't busy at the time. Like you can't create a war or a tempo when there's nothing there. Not through any fault of anyone. Just that's the environment we were in. And do you know what? I came back. I'd been the only able seaman in Afghanistan, the only one that had ever done that, the only one that did ever do it. Came back to the Navy and I was like, oh, I felt like I'd achieved something. And I came back to crickets. They're like, all right, go over there and teach someone how to blow bubbles underwater. I was like, that was really challenging, you know?
Of course. Because you're just coming off this major high.
And it sounds very self-serving to say that, and I don't mean it in that regard. But I was like, I thought I'd just done something really cool. And like all the other guys had, like, again, I don't take it away. And I talk from a clearance diver lens. We were in a desert fighting a war. We're water creatures. We're not trained to do any of that shit. And just to come back, I guess, in the lens, you go on a deployment on a Navy ship, and I've done this, so I can talk about it because I've got the experience. You come back on a 6-month deployment, there is fanfare, there is a Navy band, there's families there, there's whatever the highest senior ranking officer they can get. Like, really, like, there's a big deal made out of it. And I flew back in and they're like, oh, cool, go over there and, I don't know, maintain the barbecue box. Or like it was just really hard to figure that out, where I fit in. Like I would think, hey, you've got some really cool experience. How about you come over and teach some people some of that? Like we do EOD stuff, we just do it underwater. So we can probably apply similar messages and lessons. Yeah. And that goes for all the other clearance divers as well. Like they had similar experiences. I was just the most junior. So yeah, that was a real adjustment, but a good, like I needed some time for me and to recover and to invest in the family. Did I do that to the best of my ability? Probably not, because I was throwing myself back into work, finding whatever I could do. But I had a really good time. I got promoted after, again, I'd operated in, again, that theatre of war. I didn't even hold the rank to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't a leading seaman. So I had to come back and then almost jump up and down and say, hey, I have operated in the most high-level theatre that we have in the military, let alone clearance diving branch, and you're still not going to promote me? Like, so there was a lot of things there, man, that I really fucking ground my gears that I just couldn't comprehend, basically. So I jumped up and down, got promoted, started teaching basic scuba air, which again was good. I really enjoyed that job because I got to integrate anyone in the Navy can come and do a basic scuba course. And I really enjoyed hanging out with these people and instructing them and just making connections with people in the broader Navy. Like I often am very insular within my little clearance diving cohort and don't get out and see what the rest of the Navy does and that sort of stuff. So I had a great time doing that. The guys that I was working with were amazing. So I was very lucky again. Got promoted, 2 leading seamen, like I said, and then during that got offered my advanced course quite quickly after that. So you do another 12-month-ish course to become a petty officer sergeant equivalent, and that takes you through. You become a fully fledged EOD tech, and you become a supervisor of all diving suites. So again, I was relatively junior being put into that position, not necessarily because I'm any better than anyone else, but because we were really struggling with numbers. So I was right place, right time, and I had some really good experience that would set me up well for that course. So within sort of a 2-year period, 2.5-year period, I'd been promoted to leading seaman, spent a bit of time working, then got posted to my supervisor's course, advanced course, and then was getting promoted to petty officer. So very, very quick transition through there. I would have probably liked to have stayed in the leading seaman rank a little bit longer because it's a very foundational sort of supervisory role. So ideally, I would have loved to have stayed there, and it's a great fun role. Like that's probably within the Navy the best role. You got a bit of supervising, but you're still kind of one of the boys. You can hang both ways, which is nice. But I couldn't give up the opportunity to advance my career.
Yeah, of course.
So I jumped on that.
And in this as well, from what you sent over to me, mate, in your bio, you did some study.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned at the start of the podcast, school wasn't your greatest thing. How hard was this, starting to go and do this study? Yeah,
study was, I jumped on that. Again, like I said, I was trying to fill my life with stuff to make it busy and not address the issues at hand. So I had questions of leadership. I didn't agree with things that were happening, but I didn't have a pedestal to question it. Like I said, I'd never been to school. I'd never been in a leadership position. I'd done a heap of stuff in operator sort of roles, but so I enrolled in a Bachelor of Organisational Leadership and completed that. And it still doesn't give me a pedestal to judge, but at least it gives me some education behind it. So yeah, got that out of the way, and it was tough. Like I'd never really studied anything. So I always go back to like when you write an assignment, you have to reference. Referencing drives me mental.
I did it. I went to uni as well, and I never understood it.
And I think everyone out there that has been through that experience of tertiary education will look at it and go, "Yeah, mate, we get it." And it's not hard. You format it, and it doesn't change. Put the title and the year and the bloody authors or whatever it is in whatever specific order that's set.
Yeah.
And just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
But for some reason, whether I just didn't care enough and I couldn't, I understand why you need to reference, but I was like, just
let me write it.
But we got through it, and look, I did okay. Like I said, I'm not an A student. I think I got a couple of distinctions in there somewhere. So do you know what? I was on cloud 9. If I get a distinction, I'm like,
mate. As my mentor said to me when I went to uni, HD's equal degree, P's equal degree.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't, as long as you tick the box, mate, what does it matter?
Yeah, it's 100%. The only problem with that is that it's kind of, you look at the lowest common denominator, and I'm like, I don't just want to get the P. Like I want to at least get something out of this. So I did put in the effort, but just because you put in the effort doesn't mean you're necessarily getting the marks you want.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I got through that. Again, put myself under way too much pressure, but we talked about why that was, and then into advanced course. Got the tick in the box, was one of 2 people that passed that. Again, not because I'm any better than anyone else, but because I had some really solid experience, particularly through Afghanistan and that build-up of EOD and IED skills that it allowed that EOD, IED course to become an EOD tech. It's tough. It's really tough, really stressful, and the rate of pass through that, I think from the Navy guys, it was me and one other that passed that course, and I think there was one Army officer out of about 25 of us that started.
Yeah, wow.
So the attrition rate is huge for the obvious reason that if you get it wrong, it really goes wrong. So I think it, again, needs to be tough. And then got straight off the back of that, got promoted to petty officer, and was almost got posted back to Clearance Diving Team 1. Every time I seemed to get posted there, I'd roll in the door and they'd be like, hey, you want to go deploy here or deploy there? So managed to jag another first 9-month deployment to the Middle East on HMAS Arunta.
And that was the drug smuggling operation?
Yeah.
So what was that like, mate? Then going and doing something a little bit different?
It was long.
Yeah.
9-month deployment is fucking, on a boat is a long time.
And how's this with Steele and your partner?
Yeah. Well, to throw another, I guess, spanner in the works is my partner at the time had been diagnosed with bowel cancer.
Oh, shit.
She's now going in for relatively major surgery. She got rolled out of that surgery, and I've got this really nice photo of us 3 hugging. Still would have been, I guess, 4 at the time. 2012, 16. Yeah, 4. Hugging on the hospital bed as she's sort of doped up and sort of just coming to, and I'm out for 9 months. See you later. So just blows my mind when I reflect on that.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, and she was in the military at the time as well, so she understood the commitments that I'd made and my feeling about service and that sort of stuff. So she was okay with it. But it didn't make it any easier. So I'd be sailing away on a ship, bringing up because she wasn't out of the woods either. Like, we didn't know if there was more surgeries, if she was going to make it through that surgery. Like, just so many unknowns. So I'd be on the phone every day like, hey, how you going? You're still alive? Cool. That's a bonus. Is the cancer gone? Until probably, I guess, a month or so into that trip where she kind of got the all clear, and I could, again, take a bit of a breath and go, all right, well, the home front is somewhat under control. Her parents were amazing and sort of cared for her through that, and Steele. So super lucky, but I was still carrying all the other stuff that I'd been through, plus this now. And then I made a very clear decision with the boarding team. So my role was I was an EOD advisor to the captain. I also had experience from boarding on Resolute, like we talked about earlier, heap of EOD experience from Afghanistan. These both fed very well into this operation. And so they offered me sort of, do you want to be a boarding officer? That was never going to happen. I wasn't. Although sailors and senior non-commissioned officers have been boarding officers, not for those sort of roles. And so I was never going to take that. It just didn't fit my skill set for that operation. They said, all right, well, you will be a 2IC. I put my foot down and said, I refuse. I don't need a position to make me feel any better about myself. I can contribute to the team better if I don't have one of these senior positions, and I can fill in. Give me the lowest position. I don't care, but it allows me to then mentor the boarding officers who were very junior lieutenants, and then also mentor these 2ICs. And I had the freedom to walk around with search teams, with security teams. It allowed me, I would always be the first one on these vessels because I knew I was the most qualified and I was the most competent, just due to my experience and my job role. I was the only clearance diver. I had a whole heap of training invested in me. And then I have a young able seaman communicator female that is tiny, has a massive body armour and bags and tools and stuff. There is a clear difference in our skill sets. So I would always be the first one on these vessels to direct what was going on, ensure that it was safe, and the same getting off. That was something that I would lead that team like that. And I wasn't the leader of the team, but there was a clear intent in what I was doing. And I was always on board if something had happened, I knew that I would be there. My job was to be there. If we found a weapon or drug cache and that was protected by an IED, then I would be there. I was no use to anyone sitting on the ship waiting for that call because it was too late. You've got, again, a bosun who's amazing at their job, no idea what to do in that scenario. I had to be there and had to be able to be available and ready to do my fucking job.
Did you find any, or was there...
Yeah, we found IDs.
Yeah,
no,
IDs.
Fortunately, in that particular theatre, it just didn't get employed, and to this day I don't know why. Like, makes no sense to me. Why would you not protect your millions, like tens and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of heroin and hash. And you have a crew of barely alive at sometimes sailors, like often mentally challenged, the poorest of the poor, that they just load these boats up and say, go. Why would you not protect these with people? And we had quite a few sort of incidents where there's AKs and stuff on board. No one used them or even pointed them at them, but they had them available. So yeah, when we'd come across these cases, and I would always be involved, particularly early. Once I knew that it was safe and there was nothing going on, I'd sit back and the team can sort of take over and they can get their own experience. But at that pointy end, when you find like a false wall or something's hidden in a false fuel tank, you've got to drain 700 litres of diesel out and then get into a fuel tank. Like, I'm a relatively big dude. It's challenging to get into that fuel tank, but there's no way I would send someone else in there, which goes back to that boat story. Like, I'm not sending someone else to do my job. So I put myself in some pretty average situations throughout that, but quite a successful, like, we're talking street value of over $1 billion worth of drugs. Like, you'd pull hundreds of kilos of pure grade heroin straight out of Afghanistan. They'd shoot them out of Afghanistan, Pakistan, hit the coast, down the African coast, into Africa, into Europe, throughout the world, is normally the tracks, and for hash as well. So you're getting, I guess, the best of the best quality drugs. And it really, I never really could relax and settle on why they're not trying to protect these halls of, like, you put something on there, it goes bang. Everyone is thinking twice on whether they're going to go and board these vessels again.
Something that they just haven't implemented. You know,
look, maybe they have in different theatres, and I just haven't heard about it. Like, it's, I don't know the answer, but it's something that I took really, really seriously because I know the results.
100%. You've seen firsthand.
Yeah, I've literally been on top of one when it goes bang.
That's right, exactly, mate. And that's were your junior lieutenants, they appreciated your input and they were willing to take that on?
Look, they were very, very good. Both had their different ways of leading, different ways of running their team, but were both very open to me, my suggestions. And sometimes these guys we had one experience where I got on and there was a guy who was clearly not well. And when I say not well, like, I thought he was dead for probably 10 or 15 minutes because there was just nothing coming from him. We got Doc over, a couple of medics, and they're like, he's going to die. 100% he's going to die. And the boss was like, get off, leave him there. I looked at this young boarding officer and I was like, mate, are you comfortable with leaving this dude here to die? He's done nothing wrong. Like, this isn't a drug vessel. Like, how does that sit with you? Because it doesn't sit well with me. He's like, well, I can't say that to the boss. Like, this is a captain. I can't. I'm like, yes, you can. Like, you're the on-ground commander. You've got a whole team here that has seen this dude. They're all going to get off and know that this dude's probably going to die and roll him into the ocean in the next, let's say 24 hours, whatever. We could potentially intervene here and say, no, this guy, we could do something. But you know what? It's us. And in the same breath, I said to him, the doc gets to make the call and the boss gets to make the call. We get to wash our hands of that. It's not our decision. But it still doesn't sit well.
No, of course.
So I'm like, you get to say your piece and say, hey, we are well within our capability to bring him back and care for this person and return him back to... But then you look at the big picture, the big mission picture. Our job isn't there to go and save people's life.
Yeah, you're not there on a humanitarian.
That's right. Yeah. But that's a very challenging situation, particularly
too.
And particularly for these younger people on that boat to say, well, we like, and often I left that person there because you don't look at it as a team. You don't blame everyone else. You only look at yourself. So that was a really, really challenging one. So I guess to answer your question directly, they were very forthcoming with my advice, assistance. But again, they were also very professional themselves. Like, I was just there because I'd gained experience and
that qualification.
Yeah, that's right. And they'd come straight out of wherever officer training happens, and they just don't have the real world experience that I have.
Of course, yeah, of course. And so you come back from that deployment, and where are you posted next? And then I know throughout your career, and I'm reading through the bio, you're always seeking that next thing. And yeah, what's happened? And then I read here you go on to a interrogation course?
Yeah.
And is that you just seeking more, or what's happening with your career? Because you're coming off these highs, and then you're sort of like, well, what's next?
Yeah, look, like I always say, I'd been blessed through my career. I'd had a lot of really good experiences that people just didn't often get through that working group and that clearance diving stream. So super lucky, but I wanted more, and I yearned to get as much out of that career as I could. I also looked at the way clearance divers were being employed at the time, and there was very little, my opinion, very little meaningful employment that I could sort of get behind and say, yep, I want to commit to doing that. Because again, you can't create wars and jobs for people when there's nothing going on. And so I looked up and out and found the human intelligence program, which cued my interest almost straight away. Again, we were relatively short on numbers within the clearance diving community. So I said, look, through my CAT manager and stuff, I'd love to give this a go. And they pretty much laughed me out of the room and said, mate, you're dreaming. There's no way we can give you up. Particularly at your rank, we're just so short. It's just you're not going, mate. I said, all right, well, how about I just go and do the selection? I'm like, all right, we can spare you for 2 days. Didn't really think much of it. And because I think it was a Chief of Defence Force priority posting at the time. So I had that bubbling away, and I'd obviously formed a bit of a plan in the back of my head. So I had to go and do this selection process, which is only, I think it was 3 days at the time, 2 or 3 days. And very much assessing you for who you are. There's like how let's say how I make decisions, how I act under pressure. Again, very lucky that I had an amazing amount of really great experience that I'd groomed. So all the scenarios that I'd put in, I'd actually probably been through those scenarios in real life. So I knew how they played out. I could relate to the people, the role players, the other military people that were like enacting these scenarios. And often, again, not saying I'm any better than anyone else, but I'd lived them. So I was often giving them the staff answer. I'm like, talk to someone and understand what explosive they're using. Well, I knew that because I'm now an EOD tech. I know better than fucking anyone in this room.
Yep.
So I can get every little bit of information and walk out and go, I don't need a notepad because I'm so in tune with it.
And that's not an ego talk.
No, it's not at all.
That's not an ego talking. That's lived experience on the ground because that was your bread and butter.
That's it. So I could talk to this person, and I could see them looking at me like, oh, this guy's fucking this up. He's not taking notes. He's gonna like. They'd walk out, and I'd be like, yeah, this, and that. Like, yep. And like, you're not supposed to give anything away. You're not supposed to say, oh, you're doing well or you're doing badly, or like, but your facial, as we know,
you could tell, yeah.
Communication is mostly told through body language.
Yeah,
another little interrogator tool, but. So I'd look at these people and they're like, oh, sweet, I know that I did okay there. And again, like I said, it's not arrogance, it's not my ego, it's just that I'd lived it. Made it through that selection, got what is effectively an A pass. So within the human intelligence program, you can go source operator, so cultivate informants, or interrogation path. And you get either recommended for both or one or the other, depending on your performance. Fortunately, I was recommended for both, performed quite well through that selection and chose the interrogation route. Again, sliding doors, I really like the source side of the house and I would love to have gone back and done that, but sliding doors, I picked interrogator and boom, it got me another deployment later on. So just like my career is a series of lucky choices.
100%, mate. But as I said, you created that opportunity.
Yeah.
It was you seeking out, and we go back to Afghanistan, mate. The only able seaman to deploy to Afghanistan from the Navy.
Australia's longest war.
Which, as you said, mate, everyone just said to you, nah, Ash, sit down, mate.
Yeah.
Get back in your lane, settle down, young man.
Yeah.
But no, you've created these opportunities, and as you just mentioned, you then deploy to Afghanistan and the the pull out of Afghanistan in 2021. You've just created yourself another deployment, and second time back to but in a different role this time. You're not war fighting this time.
Yeah.
What was it like going back to Afghanistan the second time? And talk me through this deployment and your role over there.
Yeah, so I'll make the caveat. I didn't end up in Afghanistan. That was the initial plan. We stayed at AMAB and we screened all the evacuees there. Would love to have gone back, and I guess that was the intent. So I was very much preparing for that. Now going in like a team leader position, I had my own team of interrogators. We went there to screen. So very important, I guess, difference is that we weren't there to interrogate. We were pulling out effectively Australian nationals from Afghanistan. But we still had to screen them to understand who they were, make sure that they weren't anyone that they were claiming to be. So very important to say that we didn't interrogate anyone. It's very touchy, very touchy political subject.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I was prepared to go there. So that again is a very challenging thing to overcome within my mind. Having a team now, knowing again what I'd been through, unsure of, like, everyone's seen the news of what the the airfield looked like, and people falling off planes, and so that's what we were going into. That was our plan. We thought we'd end up in Afghanistan. I wish I could remember the warrant officer's name, who was the SSM at the 1 Battalion interrogation unit. He gave me a letter. He had been to Afghanistan as a soldier. He'd been shot. He knew my background. He knew that I was now taking that team. And I had an officer above me, so it's not me taking him. But as far as experience, I had the experience, and he entrusted me to write this letter. And it was a letter of basically, keep your head down, do your fucking job, and come home, because it's very real that you may not. So to read that to a group of guys that were... One of the guys that was supposed to come was actually a very good friend of mine's son. He didn't end up coming, but to read that to a group of people and say, hey, like, this is a reality, and they all knew my background and whatever else, that was kind of an honour, to be honest. I really look at that as someone entrusting me to lead these people and to give them the advice from him, but through me. It's quite a it's a real honour to get that from someone.
Of course.
And
how long was that one? How long was that?
We were there, again, great question, details on them. I think it was about 2 weeks. We sort of hit the ground. Once we were there, shit was already going sideways. People were already getting dumped in AMAB, so our Manitou Air Base just outside of Dubai. So we really had to get our shit in one sock pretty much from day one and say, righto, we've got to start sorting through these, what turned out to be, I think, 3,500 people. Understand exactly who they are, try and piece together these family units, and
why were they in Afghanistan,
and some of them, the stories, they're like, I was just over there on holiday visiting friends. I'm like, bro, the Taliban has just recaptured this country, and you're an Australian there, like some, but that's normal to them because they'd grown up there, or what. Just again, different stories, different experiences for different people. One of the ones that sticks with me is the Afghan female soccer team, and they had this really cool story of crawling through these culverts or pipes under the road to escape Taliban checkpoints, and their stories are amazing. Just cool stories of survival. Families.
It's amazing the lengths you go to survive.
Yeah,
when you're faced with that
young kids, that we'd have families come up and like, righto, you're the mum, you're the dad, you're the son, you're the this. Who's this little girl? They're like, oh, I don't know. Someone gave them to us. I'm like, well, who? I'm like, don't know. Wow. I'm like, are they here? Are they in Afghanistan? Have they been shipped to another country? Where? So then playing this piece, put the puzzle together and figure out who this poor little 3-year-old girl is. A beautiful thing that she doesn't know why she's in this situation. All she knows is probably her mum and dad that are now not there, and she's with this strange family that are caring for her because they've just been put in this situation.
Yeah, wow.
So again, I really, like, you talk about the best and the worst of humanity, and how you look at that and how you observe it and what you take on from that. Yeah, really. And then, like, flat out pedophiles and guys that were like really like that's kind of normal in their country. It's not normal in our country.
No.
And them trying to justify these things and go, hey, it's Thursday. Guess what? Where's my boy? Like,
and that's just, look, I can't fathom. And the many stories I've heard, I just can't fathom that.
Yeah, and like, it's hard not to get angry at this sort of behaviour, but that also removes you from being that consummate professional and actually getting to the bottom of the story. Like, I can get angry at this person. Like, it's not going to get me anywhere. I can't take him out the back and execute him, or I can't beat him. Like, I've just got to go, right, your values and whatever you do don't align with me. So I've got to figure out how to deal with you.
And it's that old thing, isn't it, that that's how they live in their country.
Yeah.
And to them, that's normal.
Yeah.
To us, that's like, whoa, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah, that's way over the line
100%.
in Western society.
Yeah.
But for them, it's just, like I said, it's just Thursday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it blows my mind.
And that, especially too for you, because you're a dad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, hey, hang on, if we were in another, like, if this could, like, and, you know, I'm watching my words here, but
Yeah.
if you're in that country with Still, that could be him. And
very, very, very real.
that moral compass, again, is you're now a father.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, if that's a normal thing that they see in their culture.
And I think, like, it's also important, like, I had, like, a young team, girls, guys, whatever, it doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter, it's what you experience. And, I can't shield them from it because I need them to do a job.
Of course.
But I also have to be very well aware of how that's impacting them and their ability to do their jobs and whether you can, like, the girls, often we couldn't work with girls, so we had to get our chicks to do it. So there was only 2 of them. So guess what? You're working 24 hours because you just have to. And I don't actually know when we're going to arrest you because I don't know if we can. So how does that, like, a lot of and it's just man management at the end of the day. It's very simple, but there's also someone sitting in their leather chair saying, we need to get these people out of here. You need to be doing your work. And I'm saying, well, cool, but I've only got a certain amount of people. And you just keep bringing plane loads of people, just dropping them in here. Like, something's got to give here. But that's that, I guess, that burden of leadership again to say, hey, I fucking can't. Like, unless you, like, we had a team ready in Australia, bring them over. No, we're not bringing any more people. Well, there's your answer. Like, that's...
You could give us more resources.
Yeah, your timeline gets pushed out. I'm giving you, this is the cold hard truth. And that was my job up to my boss, and then he's up to his boss.
So was that, in that 2 weeks, you said that there was, what, 3,000?
Yeah, I think it's 3,500.
Did you have to process all those 3,500?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
yeah, right.
bio-enrolling them, checking passports, figuring out who they are, putting families back together, holding and isolating and trying to manage people that we didn't fit not the profile, but weren't appropriate to be returned, whatever that looks like. And a real challenge came that they'd already been ripped out of the country. So what does it look like taking people back? And I don't know what that answer is, and I don't know what that answer was because by that stage, our job had been done and we were getting returned to Australia because AMAB had to continue to be broken down and whatever else. And within that, they made time to promote me. So I got promoted while I was there. So,
and this is where I want to highlight, because the next part of your career is a bit, and this is where you start to have some dark thoughts. And this is where you contemplate ending your life.
Yep.
And as you said throughout the potty, we've spoken about compartmentalising what happened with Paul, all the near misses in Afghanistan, losing Scotty, all these things, and you've just compartmentalised all this stuff. When did you realise that I'm in a bit of trouble here and put your hand up and say, I need a bit of help?
Yeah, I knew from very early on. Post-Afghanistan, it was very, very clear to me that I clearly had signs and symptoms of PTSD. Like, if you were to ask me back then, I'd be like, fucking oath I do. I didn't tell anyone. On reflection, 100% I do. Drinking heavily, all substance abuse, all that sort of stuff to get through, throwing myself into work, bring on more things. The list goes on. Nightmares, flashbacks. Still struggle filling up my car with diesel because I would get the diesel smell of the truck being blown up. All sorts of shit. So very early on, I knew, but I wasn't willing to give up on that life that I was living and that job that I loved.
It was detrimental to your health.
Yeah. That love-hate relationship is it's such a strange thing. Like, honestly, I look at it now, and if I could still be there, I 100% would be.
Of course you would
I'd
be,
love
yeah.
to go back. And I often think, like, I stay at a fairly high level of fitness, and all the time I think if war comes again, I'm going. Like, that's what I'm made for. Like, that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very proud and patriotic, and
Of course you are.
and I like to think that I was good
So
at my
am
job.
I.
Yeah,
I'm patriotic too.
Yeah, I'd like to think I was good at my job. So, I'd love to be back there, but also I don't wish for war. So yeah, and through that time from end of 2012 to when did I leave? End of 21. A lot of other things, like a lot of experiences happened that we just don't have time to talk about. And colleagues of all more junior peers, whatever, subordinates and superiors would seek me out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And a lot of other operations and events that happened that I wasn't involved with, people would come back and they're like, I've got this going on and this is affecting me, because they knew what I was going through. And I would talk to the boys about it and the cohort, but I wouldn't necessarily put my hand up. So I had a few safety nets in place that people would sort of not check in on me, but we built a bit of a community within to look after each other and just keep an eye on each other. Because I sort of almost built and facilitated that, I could almost circumvent it and get on the piss with someone and then sneak over here and get on the piss with someone there and like avoid it. But yeah, I'd put things in place that we were sort of keeping an eye on each other. So people knew. And then as we get towards the end, that's when things really started to fall off. Like I said, I got promoted when I was in AMAB on that operation, came back. And along with that promotion, it meant that I got promoted out of 1 Battalion, out of that HUMINT program, and back into the clearance diving world. So I went from Brisbane, where I was living with my wife and son, working in Brisbane, back to Sydney. They remained in Brizzy. And I moved into a small room on HMS Penguin, so Navy base. And that...
Not a great thing.
Mate. Not great at all. And I still look at people living on bases and I see that's such a huge risk. Just isolated. I think it was probably, let's say 10 people living in the senior NCO's accommodation, and you'd see 1 or 2 of them a day, or what, like no sort of social outlet. Go to work, come home, in my room. What do I do in here? There's fucking nothing to do. Go to the media room that TV doesn't work. Go to dinner, there's 2 other people that you either like or don't like, so you sit by yourself. So really not a healthy setting for me at the time, and I was obviously missing my family. I was really under the pump from some pretty serious PTSD at the time, leading to what is now diagnosed as depression, whether it is what it is, it's a diagnosis. And then found myself standing on North Head in Manly on the cliff, ready to piff myself over there.
Been there. Yep. Been there, very similar, mate.
Yeah, so that was my turning point. It took me to getting to that point. I wish that it didn't, but I'm also so glad that it did. And I would
made you who you are now.
And I would never ever, like, it sounds like I'm giving advice to say get to that point, to then no.
No. And we both advocate, please do not get to that
stage.
Like
that was my point that I realised, but I wish that I never got to that point. And the only thing that kept me from going over there was my son. The place that I'd chosen, on the rocks below, you can actually climb down there, and we'd climb down there a lot of times and hung out, caught crabs, and carried on. So I'm so fortunate that that's the place that, and I don't even remember how I got there. Like, I wasn't under the influence of anything. I turned up there, was on the edge of the cliff, and went, fuck, it's not my time. And went into work the next day and said, I'm probably done here. We need to do something because this isn't working well. And then from that sick bay and from that, I went to see the medics. They sent me up to the psych, had a brief chat with them, sent me to work. Went to work, spoke to my boss and my WO, both amazing men. They said, what do you need? And I said, well, I don't fucking know what I need. They said, all right, go home. And I was like, I live on a Navy base by myself. They're like, sweet, we'll book you a flight home. I went home that day and I never returned. So I'd love to have no, you know what? That's my story, and that's the right way for me. Do I wish that I left in a different way? Not really. Like, that's my reality.
So you're medically discharged?
That's right, yeah. Medically discharged probably, I don't know, 12 months later or so. But never put a uniform back on, never went back to work. So that was... I really never saw it going that way, and it happened really, really quickly from being on that cliff to then the next day flying home. And obviously I didn't know that I'd never return, but history now says that I just didn't go back. And do I wish, like, every day I wish I went back.
Of course.
But also every day I'm so glad to live the life that I do now. And if I went back, I don't know what that looks like. I only know what now is.
And we're going to talk about that now. For you, so you start that process. It takes 12 months. You medically discharge after 18 years in the Navy. And when you joined back in 2005, did you ever think, mate, that you would have been a lifer for,
nah.
or have done 18 and a half years?
Yeah, no, my intention, I was joining for 6 years and I was going to get in and get out. And I had no plans on what I'd do, but life. And do you know what? It felt like 18 days, like, it just went so quickly. Like, I honestly loved every second of that. There was hard times, and there's a lot of things that I look at and I'm like, that's fucked. And I look at the ADF today, and some of those things still challenge me. But you know what? I'm not there and I can't influence it.
That's right. And you still, as you said, mate, you're, even though the ADF's gone the way that it's gone, you're still an advocate for it. You're still an advocate, and that'll never leave you. Like, you know, and I think some of the things of the way, you know, like youth crime is and all this stuff could be solved with either going into the military or going in a first responder space, because it gives you a purpose. Yeah. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you that direction. Yeah. And a lot of these, like, you know, I'm not Dr. Phil, or I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that that this is the answer, but some of these kids they have no direction. Yeah. You give them a purpose, you give them a direction, might change something. And be careful, you open up a can of worms with me on this sort of stuff. But like you said, I am an advocate, but I'm an advocate, I think, rather than being an advocate, I've thought quite heavily on this. Rather than being an advocate for the ADF, I'm an advocate for being of service. And whatever that looks like, whether that's first responder, whether that's volunteering at a surf club, or whether that's the ADF, being a part of something that's bigger than you, I think is something that's very, very important, and caring and giving to others with no expectation of receiving is a really... And look, I got a paycheck from that. Don't get me wrong, I received stuff, but I wasn't... I lived a good life, but I was there more. It was the being of service that I was there for. Of course. And I think that's what all people is, mate. Yes. Yeah. You know, like every veteran I talk to, every first responder I know for myself, it's a giving of service. Yeah. It's belonging. Yeah. A sense of belonging and that service of you give service to others. That's what we're and if you look in life, that's what we're all here to do. I think we're forgetting that. And again, I'm 100%. Not going to get too political, because again, it's not my space, it's not my circle of influence, but I particularly look up, and I don't think those people are there for service. And that's a very broad comment. I don't say that comment and mean that about everyone, but I think we've really lost our way. And I'll probably I'll leave that. I think I could open a can of worms there, but I could be very, very decide, you know, but I'm gonna leave. I think I'll leave that one there, because and you're right. We could talk for another 5 hours on the way that the world is and the way that Australia is, but I think that's a good way to park it. Yeah. But for you, mate, I've got a few final questions, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. Mate, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self? And with everything you've gone through, everything you've experienced, and would he listen? I think
I think he would listen. I'm not so self-obsessed, and I never have been to think that I know the way. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to have some pretty strong male role models in my life early on, and I did listen. What would I tell myself? I think probably be true to yourself. For a long time through my career, I wore this mask. I tried to fit into a mould of what an ADF person looks like, what a clearance diver should look like, what a soldier should look like, what a warrior should look like. These things these constructs that we give ourselves. And it sort of took away a little bit of who I was. It took me a long time to get that person back. And that's
do you think he's fully back?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I'm super happy with who I am. I'm super happy with what I've done.
Of course.
I would have liked to have been a bit more vulnerable, a bit more real on who I was through those times. But again, I don't get to this position without doing that stuff.
Of course.
It's a learning journey. So yeah, it's a very hard one to give that advice, but at the same time, you have to walk the walk to get to that point. So it's a tough bit of advice. Just be a bit more present, a little bit less obsessed with stuff, and probably look after yourself a little bit better.
And I think just knowing you, mate, as we know each other now, probably enjoying the journey as well.
Yeah,
it's not the destination, it's the journey.
And that's what I mean about being present. Like really, really being present and enjoying I was lucky enough to do some really fucking out of the box cool
100%.
stuff. And again, a lot of it that we haven't talked about, a lot of places that I've been, and like to really stop and like smell the roses as such and go, geez, this is fucking pretty cool. Not many people get to do this, and you know what? A lot of the lasts, like this is my last time doing this, just enjoy it, because you don't know when your last time is, and I didn't know that all those things were going to come to an end when they did.
Yeah.
So yeah, be really present and thankful for what you're doing and what you're getting.
Absolutely. Mate, what advice would you give to any young listener out there who is thinking of joining the Navy, but also thinking of going in and being a clearance diver?
Jeez. Similar advice. Also, don't take no for an answer. I never did. And a little bit of a mantra that I've sort of started living by is do hard things. Choose the hard route, because it's often the right route. All too often you see the easy one, you're like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. Choose a hard thing, you get to the end, you're like, fuck, I deserve this. That was good. So yeah, like a lot of times I got told no through my career, and I found a way, and it paid off. Be respectful with the way you say no. It doesn't have to be a fuck you. It can just be okay, well, you said no, I'm going to find a way that does work, and I'm going to make this work because it's important to me. And I, like we talked about, I built a career off saying no to people and finding a way.
Absolutely. And would you say to mentally prepare, because it is a challenging job, and like we said at the start of the podcast, you took your family on this journey too, and mentally prepare them that they're going to go on this ride with you as well? Yeah,
a tough one to do. And like I said, you have to be very naive to join an organisation like the ADF and think that you're going to get away scot-free, because very rarely do you walk out of that place with no sort of demons on your shoulder. And it doesn't matter what job profile you do. Some are more dangerous than others, but a lot of my friends that have never been to war zones, have never been on operations, walk away with some really dark demons just because of what you're exposed to in that organisation. Not their fault. It is what it is. It's one of those roles. So 100% prepare. Like, I don't know whether this is a good way to do it, but I think about what can happen. Like Afghanistan, like pretty likely that you're going to be near something that's going to go bang. Pretty likely that you're probably going to fire your weapon or someone's going to fire you. It's a war zone. Think about these things. Probably even talk about it. And there's vicarious exposures to trauma and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't go down that route until it's done professionally. But there's a lot of ways that you can prepare yourself for those things.
Absolutely. And mate, for you now, looking back with 18 and a half years service, was joining the Navy still the best decision? Apart from having was it still the best decision you made?
Yeah, it's like I got so much from that. Makes me a little bit emotional to actually think about like that 18-year-old kid that signed up and 19-year-old when I signed on the line, like to a 40-year-old sitting here, like I would never change that for the world. I wouldn't even change any of the stuff that happened. Like I'm very proud of them. I'm the person that I am because of them. So yeah, like without a heartbeat, I'd ride that ride again. Sign me up.
With all the highs, all the lows, everything, mate.
Go and pay my $2, give me the ticket and put me back on the ride. Like
100%.
Yeah.
And for you now, mate, we'll talk about the last couple of things that we're going to talk about. And, mate, you're about to do a challenge to swim the English Channel to raise funds for the Navy Clearance DiverTrust.
Yeah.
Mate, where did the idea of this crazy thing come from? And what's involved with training and the prep? And how long is the English Channel?
Yeah.
And for you, how long will it take you do you think, roughly, to do it?
So, I guess back to the start, like volunteering for the Clearance DiverTrust, it's something that, like, I lived all those experiences. I know the result of them, so I'm passionate about being there for when these other people go through it. I've walked that walk, for lack of a better word, and I know how it can impact myself, them, their families. So that's the why. And to say swim. So swim is somewhat correct.
Sorry, finning. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, finning.
So we talked about finning earlier. So lying on my back, kicking my legs. So I'm not actually swimming, just kicking my legs across. That's how it relates back to the clearance diving world. And how did it come about? I was sort of searching for something to do that would mean something and how I could give and raise money, and I guess being of service. Like, how can I now be of service when I'm not wearing a uniform and I'm not with these people? How can I give back to a group that I'm so passionate about? So I got a friend said, well, why don't you swim the English Channel? I was like, oh, sounds like a weird suggestion, but and on further sort of thought, I was like, well, why don't I fin it? That makes a bit more sense. And as when I looked into it, no one's ever done that, so it's kind of a bit of a it's a cool thing to do.
So you might go for a world record.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, like I live by this mantra of doing hard things, so why not just make it a bit more challenging? Course. So how long? So I'm doing it in June. So my weather window is the 3rd to the 11th of June this year. How long? I'm planning for about 18 hours. I'm hoping for around 15, which is about comparable to a lot of the people that swim it. I mean, I've spent a lifetime unknowingly preparing for it, although I'm deep into training now, but the 18 odd years of doing it anyway set me up quite well.
Yeah.
Water temperature, so we're looking at, I have to do a qualifying swim in Melbourne soon. It has to be below 16 degrees, so we can expect, I think English Channel normally sits about 15.
We did 0.5 of an ice bath.
Should be easy,
morning, mate. Should be
5 minutes in half a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm doing it for the right reasons, and
100%.
Like it's a really nice thing for me to be able to, on the back of my career, sit back and be able to continue to give. It's very important.
So with that, you're saying 18 hours, but 15 hours you're hoping to do it in. So that's non-stop. You don't.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So effectively, once you leave the beach in England, you aren't allowed, you effectively void your opportunity. If you touch something, you void your opportunity. So whether you're swimming or finning or however, obviously with me finning, once I don't get to touch anything until I touch the sand in France, wherever it lands.
Wow.
Which is quite cool that it may align with D-Day. Depending on when I leave, that would be, and through just, again, that sheer luck.
Yep.
The luck of, I must be Irish or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so that would be really cool to be able to line that up.
Absolutely. And like with that, have you got someone as a guide to you're saying you can't touch anything?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the English Channel going, well, if you're finning, how are you steering and how
that's right.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to explain this. Most divers will understand that you just somehow inherently get an ability to know where you are in the body of water. It's a very big body of water, and there's a lot of tidal movement, but sun movement, all those sort of things. But to answer your question, yeah, I do have a support boat. You aren't actually allowed to swim that channel without it. And there's a few hoops you have to jump through because you're actually technically immigrating to another country. So that boat then has to pop you back in the boat and return you to the UK. So there's a few must-haves in there.
And is there sharks?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? There definitely are sharks around. They're not sharks like Australia has sharks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like no one has snakes or spiders like Australia has spiders and snakes.
Yeah.
So there is. Through my career, I went through a preparation for every dive, and we're talking hundreds of dives, that I prepared for that to be my last. I was basically prepared to die, which again is a very unhealthy way of doing things. But I've sort of said this is the last time I'll do that. And again, I've been through some pretty extensive psychotherapy recently, knowing this is coming up.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to feel like when I get to that beach and when I get into that water and start. I don't know whether I'm going to be okay with it or not. History tells me that I'm not. So I've succumbed to the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm going to prepare that will be death. After that, I just don't know what that's going to look like. But I'm at the point where I say, okay, it is what it is. You've done it before, so just go and do it again, and that may be the last time you ever get in the water or whatever. I just don't know.
Yeah. And mate, if people want to donate, how do they follow you, and how do they donate to this cause that you?
So
pretty bloody awesome cause.
Donations are through the Navy Clearance DiverTrust website. If you want to follow the journey, probably the easiest way is to just. Probably Instagram. I post most of my updates and stuff on there. So
are you live streaming this as well, or
we're currently in a bit of a negotiation with a couple of fairly high end military hardware companies that may have some technology that can follow me. We'll see how that pans out. So there's a few things on the go there. If not, Ash.Semmens is Instagram. So there will be hourly updates on there for the swim and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, I guess kind of watch this space, and we'll see what how well we can wheel and deal a few live streaming platforms.
Absolutely, mate. And for you, mate, what are you doing now? Now that you're out of, like, you got the challenge to fin the channel. What are you in? Because I understand now I want to talk about what you're doing now and the amazing charity you've started, or is it more of a business?
Definitely business, yeah. So We Rise Collective. So it is effectively a coaching platform, a mentoring platform. I see that you mentioned youth crime earlier. There's a loneliness epidemic. People don't talk to each other these days. We can't communicate properly, spend lives on our phones. The relationships and divorce rates are through the roof. So just helping people in those spaces.
Awesome.
I have a whole lot of experience through a whole lot of different things, mainly work related, but it's taught me a lot about life. So mentoring people, and I love particularly youth. Like I feel like that next generation is
where
we
future.
can, that's right. We can really make and invest in that. And I guess call me selfish and greedy. Like my son is one of them. So if I can improve that world for him, then what an amazing opportunity.
100%. And I wanted to touch on it, mate, because it's awesome. Like I love what you've created, and it's, as you said, mate, you're now becoming a mentor for the mentors that mentored you.
Yeah, that's right.
And they mentored you to get you to where you are.
Yeah.
And now we go full circle. It's time. It's your time to give back, mentoring the next generation. Yeah, that's right.
My cup, for the analogy, my cup is starting to fill up on experience. And go back to that word wisdom. I wouldn't say that I'm the grand guru that sits there and knows everything. But you know what? I know a fair bit, and I've done a lot. So
100%.
I can give back to whether it's these young lads or quite a few of the guys that I'm working with are my age and older. And are going through very different things on their own paths.
And mate, sometimes that lived experience, it's better than sometimes the experience of reading it in a textbook.
Look,
you can't beat it.
Yeah, you can't. And when you can talk to someone on their level and in their words,
100%.
Rather than reading something going that doesn't resonate because I have no idea.
Yep.
I don't understand that language.
Yep.
And even to the point of I explain it as confession, but it's more just being there. I'm not a counsellor, I'm not a psychologist, but you know what? I can sit there and listen.
100%.
And a lot of people don't have that. So if I can sit there and have a genuine conversation with someone about how their day was, or something that's going on with their family or work or their life, and you know what, they might not have anyone to talk to.
But you've made their day.
So what a beautiful opportunity to give them something
100%.
in life, a connection for them to grow and build whatever they want to build.
100%. And that's, as you say, mate, we've been speaking for just over 3 hours or nearly 3 hours and 20 minutes. And it's been epic, mate. And just, that's why I wanted to get you on and have, and share your story. And mate, I've got the best job in the world. Like, I don't even class it as a job. I get to sit and interview you guys, like first responders, veterans, and amazing inspirational people that are out there trying to do, trying to implement change and make the world a better place. It's the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. And what you're saying is that art of, we've lost the art of a conversation. I mean, I can talk, everyone's told me I can talk with
underwater.
a mouthful of marbles, like probably true. But no, it is. Mate, it's absolutely been a privilege. And before we finish up, there's one more question. Mate, what are your plans going forward with Steel and for you into the future? What does it look like for you now?
Yeah, great question, tough question. I guess you sort of alluded to it. I'm now effectively a single dad, been through a divorce myself. So again, another learning experience for me that I can then give back. So what does the world look like and what does life look like? Continue to build the business, continue to be a role model for my son and be the best dad I can be. And continue to find ways to give, to be of service, to challenge myself, and ultimately just to grow into whatever I look like in tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years time.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. And life's a cool thing. Like I said, I'm really scared of death because I love life.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like at the moment.
Awesome. No, and you think that looks like going back to being surf patrol and doing all that sort of stuff?
Yeah,
again?
look,
Yeah?
I really have a passion for that. And if I can get myself into a a geographical position where I can get back into that, I would love to.
Yeah.
At the moment, living in Brizzy, it's just too hard to get to the beach. And
of course.
you're driving the way the highways are, it's driving 15 hours to get to the Gold Coast. So yeah, look, there's something in there, and so if I can get there, 100%. If not, I don't know, whatever that looks like.
And like you said, mate, just supporting veterans and first responders and anyone who's struggling with mental health.
Yeah, anyone.
And that's it, and that's what it's all about. And Ash, it's been an unbelievable story. What a just unbelievable, mate. Like this, we've unpacked so much in this. And mate, I want to thank you for your 18 years of service and everything you do, as I said, for veterans, for first responders, and people who are struggling with mental health, because you have walked a unique path, but through your lived experience, you now can pass on that unique experiences that you've had to help others. And mate, it's been an absolute privilege and an honour to have you on True Blue Conversations. So, mate, thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Mate, thank you. And look, thank you for your service. It goes both ways. I really appreciate your time.
We'd like to thank Tactical Recovery for sponsoring this show. Head on over to tacticalrecovery.com.au and use the code TRUEBLUE for one hell of a discount. Tactical Recovery, magnesium-based muscle care, salty products for sore fuckers. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. See you on the front line.